Hello, hello, my dear friends, you've reached Elena's bar. The best place on the internet, the very best by far. She'll help improve your fitness, but there's also so much more. 'Cause here are just a few things that this channel has in store. There's barre and there's Pilates and there's belly dancing too. And many styles of yoga, so I'm sure there's one for you. Then watch her practice pianist string from right within her home. She's in such big condition, she'll outrun the metronome. Elena's Barre, Elena's Barre. They're the best place on the internet, the very best by far. It's not just the piano, but the ukulele too. The guitar and violin are even more that she can do. She does so many different things, it's hard not to lose track. I nearly didn't mention that she posts on her Substack. Elena's Barre, Elena's Barre. The best place on the internet, the very best by far. Yet controversial topics may be brought up for discussion, but try not to provoke her or she'll swear at you in Russian. And sometimes certain topics can make quite a big impression. So remember, you take part at your own risk and your discretion. Yeah, Elena's Barre, Elena's Barre. The best place on the internet, the very best by far. You might even meet Anitta if you're quite a loyal fan. She's got a fixed male cat, but she's so desperate for a man. We've really got it all, then you couldn't ask for more. So sit right back and watch Elena shave a 3 or 4. Elena's Barre, Elena's Barre. The best place on the internet, the very best by far.
Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back. Welcome to the channel. Today I have the resurgence of sanity with me, guys. Thank you, Nick. And Plutarch is here with us today.
He's in the room.
Yeah.
He's in the room.
Yeah. Well, we don't have Steve today because he's busy. He's working. And yeah, I asked my husband to join us because it's really a male topic. We are going to talk about...
Well, I kind of have to be here for this one.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, and Eamma is still recovering from her surgery. So yeah, guys, the topic for today is how can a man impose consequences on a woman? Yeah.
Women can be held accountable?
Well, that's the idea, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Let's okay. Yes, they can, but you know what, guys? Beating your women ain't gonna work. Let's just get that out of the way right now. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Physical stuff doesn't work. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't work.
Well, what
For a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah. Legal, personal,
Mhm.
familial, ecclesiastical. It doesn't work. Not a good idea. Don't do it.
Practically, it doesn't work either. Like, yes, there's lots of reasons, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you're joining us for this discussion, it's going to be fun. It's a fun topic. Remember to drop a comment in the chat and please like, share, and subscribe. And tell us what you think about the topic. Feel free to leave a comment. We are going to bring your comments up, okay? Cool. So, yeah, guys, this is where I'm struggling too, because a lot of people now refuse to marry because men realize that there is not much they can do in the marriage. They don't have the authority. They really don't get any benefits out of marriage, especially if women restrain sex, women are nagging, they're constantly dissatisfied with the man. They are comparing him to some other dude online that another girl has, and she says, oh, look at my husband, he's cooking for me, he's cleaning for me. and then the wife starts beating her husband up for doing the same things for her. And it's just this constant comparison. They are not happy with what they have, and I just don't see how it's going to work out for men.
Well, okay. I'm going to say something right off the bat, and hopefully this gets a topic or the conversation going. But men, if you haven't been doing this since very early in the relationship, don't start. Please don't. You're asking for a world of hurt.
Oh, you mean if he hasn't been holding her accountable and imposing boundaries on her?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Women, once they get used to the good life, to the easy lifestyle, to the things that a man used to do for her for free, then she will expect that.
Oh,
go ahead.
Expect to be a useless human being and get rewarded for acting poorly.
Pretty much, yeah.
Is this it?
Well, Nick, you have a few kids.
Yeah, more than a few, but yeah.
How well does it work when you don't set expectations for your kids? And
they immediately
go ahead.
They immediately will run all over you. I immediately set expectations. Immediately. Consequences for actions, expectations, and rewards for good behavior.
Okay. So now, obviously, kids, if they don't understand the expectations, if they're not old enough, well, okay. But when we're talking about dating here, so your woman is old enough. She is of the age of majority. She has been through. She's made it, survived school. So clearly, and this is what really gets me about this. When women survive school, they understand at some level that there is a consequence for misbehavior. In this case, choosing to do things other than homework. Right. So they have experienced consequence in their life. So, when you're dealing with a woman, I can guarantee you, she knows what a consequence is. She probably even knows why they're important, although schooling these days.
Yeah.
So it starts at a young age.
Well, but what happens if they don't have a father?
Yeah, it's coming back to that father figure that a lot of women are missing today.
Yeah, because of single mommies.
Mm-hmm.
The cycle keeps perpetuating itself. You have generation after generation raised with essentially absent father or distant father, no father at all, and
okay,
they
that's
naturally
an
are
interesting
an authority and power figure. And
that's an interesting question.
Tend to be
because these girls will have made it through life experiencing consequences, but without a father around, they would never have had it demonstrated to them that father figures are and because my father was the source of a lot of consequence. Well, it particularly as I got older, that's around 9 or 10. In my family, we had corporeal punishment, and I know that's a big topic, and we're not going to get into it.
I had that.
Yeah, but about 9 or 10, I got so strong that my mom used to use wooden spoons, and I broke a few. She just broke, and so it changed. My mom stopped delivering the consequences, and my dad built what he called the equalizer. And so, yes, the paddle had a name, and it was made out of 3/4 inch plywood, and it was not breakable. We tried. But what that meant is that this is actually interesting because if we did something during the day, my mom would say, I'm going to tell your dad about it and he will deal with you when you get home. He did not. No, this was not what you
I know what
wanted.
that means. No.
Yeah, this was not
Being
what you
tortured
wanted.
for the rest of the day waiting for that to happen.
Exactly. Spent hours knowing that the equalizer was coming off the wall. and you got yourself psyched up for this. So it got worse as I got older. But the thing was, by about 14, we were done. We didn't need it anymore. At least for me, I was 14 is just entering high school. I was more interested in honestly, I was more interested in being productive and doing things that I wanted to do than fucking around and finding out. I looked at the clock. We're after 10 minutes. I can say that.
Yeah. How long was the process of using that equalizer? How long did it was quick? A few times?
Yeah. It didn't take much. And the worst part was the build up to it.
The psychological.
Oh yeah.
Just wait till your dad gets home.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, and what happens now is women, they don't want men to execute their authority, to bring any consequences to their children, because they say, oh, but we love them unconditionally.
It's not really their fault. They're good kids.
Right. And then kids are grown into these useless members of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Nick, what do you think would have happened if my mom, instead of holding me accountable and saying, hey, your dad's going to deal with this, what if she had instead said, oh, don't do that again, but don't worry about it. We won't tell your dad.
Well, I actually understand the dynamic.
No consequence.
Well,
go ahead and do it.
That's what you learn, right? Somebody might yell at you, but there's no actual consequence.
No actual consequence, because mothers are too busy trying to be best friends with their kids. And we actually saw this trend with Elena's Barre community, with Eamma, and I think Melody was with us back then when we were watching some content where we were analyzing posts that mothers were making on social media and showing their kids as, oh, he's my partner in crime, or she's my best girlfriend. And you see mothers are using their kids to say to people how friendly they are with their kids, that they are best friends to their kids. And there are no boundaries. This implies that when you are on the same level as your children, you don't have the authority over your children either. So children are not going to listen to you because they will view you as a friend.
You've inverted the hierarchy. You did it to the man. Now you're doing it with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos. No discipline.
No discipline.
And you raise useless human beings essentially to grow up and not know how to hold a job and can't be stable.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be stable part, I think, is actually a critical. I mean, jobs, and a lot of managers will tell you this, jobs have turned into a daycare for adults anymore. You have to coddle them. You can't give them, you can't reprimand them. I mean verbally. I'm not talking about any sort of like, oh, you're going to get fired. No, like you can't say anything bad about them.
Well, what if they are failing their job? What if they are not fulfilling their duties that they were supposed to fulfill?
You still got to be. You still got to be super sweet and nice. And
then why are they hired?
Because who else are you going to hire?
Right.
They're all useless. Pretty much.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that.
Well, yeah, but it's true. I and we've talked about the generations before on our channel, but the millennials have a reputation for being these coddled spoiled snowflakes. And everyone says that Gen Z is going to save us.
They're even worse.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Mhm.
They are on this topic.
Yeah.
Like they might be better on other aspects, but on this topic, they're not better. So, but without consequence, see, and I've talked about my work ethic probably, and I probably work more than I should, but that's me. I enjoy my work, but I was
up until like 11:30 last night.
working. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I was given that from my dad. I grew up with and people would say that my dad worked too much, but
We have that in common. Okay.
Well, I mean, he would probably even say he worked too much, but
He had to.
It was necessary to put food on the table.
Mhm.
He's out there trying to build something, like,
Right.
and he had to work on it. He had to run it during the day. So the only time he had to do the other functions of the business was at night. Okay, well, come home at night, do the other functions. Okay. So, I'm not trying to say that my dad was a bad dad. I've got lots of stories of doing crazy things with my dad growing up. We called it wrestling, just horsing around would be another term for it. But the work ethic that I got from my dad and the understanding of the importance of work and the importance of play, I got that from my dad. And now my mom didn't coddle me, as I said. When we got old enough, and she couldn't do, we were too big for the corporeal punishment. She still held us accountable, but it was with dread, not with the actual punishment.
Oh yes, your mother is.
So I'm not trying to say that women can't do it, but she had backup.
Yeah.
What does a woman do when she doesn't have backup? I don't know, Nick. You could probably speak to that more than I can.
What do you mean by backup?
Well,
I was thinking on something else for a moment.
Well,
in a different direction.
So like when I screwed up, my mom could she could do some basic, like this is gonna, I was thinking about the story last night, so I'll bring it up. We were shopping, food shopping. We go into the store and I take a strawberry, just pluck it, and I eat it right there.
Yeah.
And she's livid with me. She's having a meltdown. She makes me go and apologize to the guy behind the counter. And then, we make it through the store, we do all that. She's still mad. And of course I am completely cowed at this point. I've never seen my mom that mad over something. I just thought it was a strawberry, it was sitting right there. It looked good to eat. I'm probably 8 years old. Your dad's going to hear about this. But that's what I mean by backup. So she did some of it right there, right? She did some of the punishment right there.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no father figure, there's really no backup. Actually, what the backup becomes?
What?
The state.
I knew you were going to say
that. Yeah.
But that's a later in life.
They teach even like these single mommies, once they get rid of the husband, right? They're ready to go to the state for a masculine presence already. So they'll even do that to try to enforce stuff on their kids. She tried doing that to me and my older sister all the time. I just fucking left. Okay. I'm out of here.
Yeah, this was not
me for days. You won't find me for a week.
This was not an experience I had at any point in my life. So
grateful. No, it's usually like my dad tell me something, she tell me something, and she would enforce her boundary on something that she had no legal right to, and you're a dumb kid caught in the middle of something, don't know, you know, whose advice, who you're supposed to obey. But her only enforcement is the state at that point.
Now, I know we spent a lot of time talking about discipline and father figures, but we're trying to set something up. We're trying to set up a picture here. And that is that men, I'm going to say this, and let's see if I can trigger some feminists here. One of the purposes of men is to enforce boundaries on life. We've talked about this abstractly before, but men, you've probably heard the saying, women make men, women provide a reason for men to civilize. No. Women civilize the world men civilize the world for the women. Putting boundaries on something, putting limits on something, saying here and no further is the core act of civilization. Name however you want, whatever boundary you want. Okay, we have the police force, we have the judiciary. Those are boundaries on human behavior. But also we have around our yards fences, boundaries. This is my property, not yours.
We have treaties, alliances.
Oh yeah. We have state boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so as children, if we don't learn that there are boundaries with consequence. Oh, I've got to go. I stole a strawberry. Straight up stole it. The poor guy behind the counter was super sweet about it. He'd never. I don't think.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But
it was an important lesson.
Right. He understood he was old enough that at the time that he understood what was going on, and he just played along with it. But that simple act of putting a boundary on my behavior and a consequence for crossing it. I'm probably 8 years old at this point, and yes, it's a single strawberry. That taught me the importance of, okay, when I do something like this, there's a consequence.
And it was imposed by your parents.
Both of them at different points in time.
And the same authority that the father has over a grown daughter transfers over to the husband at the marriage ceremony, according to Numbers chapter 30.
Isn't that the purpose
so they're
of
still
walking down the aisle? The dad walking?
Yes. Okay. But modern marriage cannot conceive of that. So they don't think that there's a husband can impose consequences on that woman. I would say if you're not married, the consequences is withdraw attention or leave. End the relationship.
True. Well, now that you mentioned
that's easy. You're not tied.
If husband can't impose any consequences on her, no man can impose any consequences on her, and it comes from dad. If her dad wasn't able to impose any consequences on her, then nobody can.
Right. And in fact, that's essentially what the state does. And that's what the church is. And I'll say, the church is actually, they're actually okay with, disciplining the kids and stuff, but they can't, the churches won't allow husbands to have consequences towards the wives. And the churches don't give consequences to women either. So it's this whole cycle of no consequence for the woman, and it transfers down to the next generation of the kids. They observe the rebelliousness and the absence of father. They have no father to impose consequences. And so the big daddy state is always the one who steps in.
Okay.
The real superior.
But
the tyrant. I hope they've. Never mind.
Well, but what do we do when? Because there's still lots of women out there who had fathers, but the father either voluntarily gave up, for lack of a better term, or was made to understand early in the relationship that such disciplinary action was going to carry with it severe consequences, and such, imposition by the state state intervention, basically. What are we supposed to do then when the fathers, even if they wanted to, were neutered by the mothers?
I'm neutered right now. I really can't do shit for my kids. So
Right.
I'm not there, and I can't impose really any corporeal consequences. So,
I'm not saying
and I
have an
guarantee
answer.
everything that I'm doing is probably being recorded and repeated back.
Well,
and twisted, depending on who listens.
I have thought to myself, what happens when one of your kids gets old enough and decides, because my understanding is your kids are still mostly under the teenage bar.
My oldest is 11 and 10, so the oldest two. So.
Yeah, you've got a couple years left before the real rebellion sets in. Rebellious phase. Those kids are going to figure out real quick that they can play your mom off of anything you try to do. They play mom.
Well, they already just started doing that earlier.
Oh, joy.
They did that before everything went crap. Because guess what? The church allows it. All the friends, they hear the friends around her talking about me and how bad I am. And
Well, the moment she betrays her husband and his authority, then anybody can play against the man, including the kids. Kids figure it out very, very quickly. I used to work with children, and every time, and my mom was also saying to me, "You are too strict with them. You are too strict to them." And I was saying, "No, I'm not strict enough, because you can't allow them to do what they want to do. Otherwise, it will be chaotic, and the group will be so disorganized." And they would get themselves in trouble, and then I would wait until to see if they can bail themselves out of trouble. But then, of course, if they couldn't, I had to return the group back home. So what I would do then, yes, I would engage my forces and remove them out of trouble eventually. But I really wanted them to suffer the consequences for their decisions, because some of them were messing up quite a bit. Some of them learned the lessons, they didn't do it again, but a lot of them didn't. So yeah, without the consequences, it's...
So you're saying that this isn't a Western thing? This is a universal human nature thing?
It's a universal human behavior thing. Yeah.
This was in Mother Russia, huh?
Well, there would be Russian kids, and they would be taken abroad to study foreign languages, and they would get themselves in trouble, like in a lot of trouble.
And how many of them?
They would think that they would think that they are
there's a lot of feminism in Russia.
What?
Well, you're saying there's also a lot of feminism in Russia.
Oh, there is a lot, yeah. And then sometimes...
is there a lot of single mommies too?
Oh, yes. There would be some single mommies who would call me like at 3 a.m, not actually me, but the office. And then they would keep bugging me, "Elena, resolve this issue. And I'm like, okay, if I resolve it right away, then the kid wouldn't learn anything, and I want the kid to learn something from this lesson, but then at the same time, it's not my kid, so there's not much I can do, right? And then the kids would complain on me that I was too strict with them. I wouldn't do what they wanted to do because there would be consequences. Like, look, if they misbehaved, I would say no shopping therapy for you. And it was devastating for them. They went abroad so that they could shop, not to study the foreign language, not to watch excursions and travel around, right? They wanted to buy things. This was their initial purpose for the whole trip, apparently, you know? And then the parents were expecting them to attend the classes, and then some teachers would complain that, oh, they are missing the classes, they are hanging out with this bad company, they are smoking some crazy stuff on the grass in the college campus. They would falsify their documents. It's just some stories, you know, that we've had to deal with. They would falsify their documents to get alcohol. Like, who would sell these kids the alcohol? Because they would show the student ID card so that they could get smashed. They would get drunk. And then I would always defend my kids. But then when I see the evidence that they are on camera, the college officer would show me, like, Elena, come over here. We have a problem with your group. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did they do again? And then he would show me, are these your kids? I'm like, hell yes, they are my kids. You need to watch them better. I'm like, I thought they went to sleep. I checked all of them. They went to sleep. Then they woke up, and then they got drunk.
How old are these kids? Like 18,
Oh, they
19?
varied. The age varied. It was from 10 to like 17. Because
10?
yeah, 17,
Oh, so they
18.
were. Oh, yeah, I did some of that behavior when I was like 17, 18.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, some of them, they were younger.
That just looked the other way.
They would, and it's interesting to watch the group dynamics, because they would get themselves in trouble by just associating themselves with some problematic children, and then it would like it was a good lesson for them, I hope, because they would be punished just by associating themselves.
No, it wasn't.
With a few kids.
I can guarantee you they didn't learn anything.
No.
Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah, this is how they viewed it. No parents. Oh, Elena, she's so soft. And you know, every time we met before, I had to lead them through this group tour. They would think that, oh, Elena is so sweet. She's smiling. She's so nice and kind. And then they just come into, we are at the airport sitting, and I'm reminding them of the rules. And I used to speak English, only English with them, so that they wouldn't bother me with some stupid questions. And I told them, if you want me to answer to your question, you must ask it in English. That's the rule. Okay, the rest I don't care, because everything is organized. So they really had to walk there. And then we would sit at the airport, and I would tell them, like, this is the rules. If you mess up, I'm not bailing you out. You are going to suffer the consequences. And I mean,
Well,
we tried
okay.
our best with the school to
What
do
are the consequences when you're abroad as a young kid in a foreign country? What are the consequences?
Well, the consequences that we could come up with the school were, and the school was really reluctant to impose any consequences on kids, because our group was not the only one that was problematic. There were multiple groups from multiple countries, and kids would get in trouble. This is what they do. So we told that we would impose the tariff punishment. So if they break something, it costs that much money to fix it, because eventually the school will send us the invoice for the broken stuff. So we would ask them for deposits, and then we would tell them that if you survive the whole trip without getting in trouble, you will get your money back that you can spend on shopping. And shopping was a huge motivation for children, because they want to shop, they want to buy stuff. And some of the kids were punished that I wouldn't even take them to the shopping center. They would be doing other activities. I would leave them with the school stuff, and they wouldn't go shopping with us. It was a big punishment for them. And then the money, so it just like the more money, it was a big deposit that they all were inspired to get back. And then depending on how much they screwed up, we would deduct, like, you know, according to what school tells us. This is how kind of we were doing it. And I proposed that because there was one time where our kids set up alarm clock that woke up everyone, and it was the fire alarm. I don't know what they did. I think they covered that alarm with a sock. You know, kids are creative. They will get themselves in a lot of trouble. And then they were trying to smoke inside of the campus. And that would set off the alarm clock. And then everyone at 4 in the morning, the alarm clock. I was like, oh my gosh, my computer, my documents. We had to leave the campus like in pajamas, and it was UK, cold, you know? So yeah, after that we decided that we need to impose some consequences on them. So,
Consequences work at all, or just a
yeah.
little bit?
They do in general, yes. Oh, there were a few departure orders that I was able to prevent actually back in the UK. There were 2 kids. They really got like the college guy was so ready to send them back to Russia. And I was just begging. Like, it was the first time where I was begging, I was crying, like I was just like, please, 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 like I need to return this group. And then it was a severe consequence that the school actually wanted to do for the kids, but it was so rare. It was one guy and great college master, or whatever you call them, the director of the school. He wanted to impose those consequences on kids, like departure. Like, you screwed up, you get deported, but then departure implies that you are not welcomed to any European country, at least for a few years. So it was very serious for the kid. And then I talked to their parents, and their parents were begging me. They were just, Elena, please do anything, pay the money, you know, and usually like bribe someone, you know, to get out of the trouble. You know, that's kind of the mentality. And then, yeah, you had to do what you had to do. And we did get them out of trouble, but it was
So you gave them an offer that they couldn't refuse, huh?
pretty much, yes. We paid a lot. We paid to that school a lot. And you know, the school even didn't want the money. They wanted the kids to learn. And I'm like, well, it's like we are in a prickly situation here, because then they won't send their kids through our company anymore, you know, like if their kids get deported.
Well, that is a function of the parents not being willing to impose consequences on their kids. They're more interested in paying to get out of the consequence.
Right.
And I mean, this is patriarchal Russia here, guys. I'm sure Dad was in the background cringing the whole way through all these conversations, but probably wasn't allowed to do anything about it.
Probably. And actually, the kid was very scared of his dad. On the way home, we got him out of trouble. He also lost his documents. Oh my goodness, that poor kid. Like, yeah, he broke the teeth of one kid who had braces, and then I had to deal with that medical emergency. And then he got home, and on the way home, when we were flying home, he was like, I'm too scared to go home now, because I can imagine my dad with the belt, you know, sitting at the airport waiting for him. He got himself in a lot of trouble during that trip. And
But fun fact on this, he wasn't scared of his mom.
No, he was very scared of his dad, because the dad was also in the tourism industry, actually, and he understood what the departure order implied for him and for his kids. So he was like, Elena, whatever, like, please. And usually and the problem is with these kids when they travel around, and I noticed it when I was in Spain. We had another group in Spain. There was a US girl. She was under 21 years old. She was 18, I think. She got smashed drunk with the German guys, and they dragged her back to their residence where we were living, and she couldn't stand on her feet. And then the guys knocked at my door, and then they told me, Elena, can you help us out? I'm like, there is nothing I can do here. It's like, she's not my student. I don't care. You know, like, you guys got yourselves into this mess. You invited her without checking her ID. And in Germany, in Europe, people start drinking alcohol at the age of 18, I think. Or maybe 16.
Started at 17.
Or 17. Yeah, somewhere in there.
No, but
much earlier than in the US. So she
No, you're not
got
supposed to, but everybody starts it.
right. So that they are pretty much used to, and it's Germany we are talking about, right? Guys drink beer a lot.
Yep.
So yeah, they are used to some alcohol. She was 18, maybe was raised in a very strict environment where her parents were really watching her. And it can also happen that if parents don't introduce their kids into consuming alcohol slowly, getting used to it, then the kids go out to Europe elsewhere where it's allowed, and then she just had no control, nothing, like she vomited all over herself, and I'm like, you guys invited her, you deal with it. I didn't help them, but they were asking me, they didn't know what to do with her. I'm like, not my problem. But if I see it one more time with her drunk like that, I'm going to report you, and I'm going to complain to the residence owner. So yeah, there were some rules, and like I wouldn't help kids. Even like I felt for them, I felt bad for them. I understood why it happened because of the alcohol restriction here in the US, right? But yeah, and the kids get out of their home even if they are being raised in a strict environment with the imposed consequences, and then they feel like, oh, it's freedom, now I can do whatever I want, nobody will tell me anything.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because you've actually touched on another key point here. Just because we impose consequences on somebody doesn't mean that they're not going to rebel.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows about the rebellious years. Everyone, that's actually part of growing up. You just have to let it happen. Nick, I feel sorry for your future because you're not going to be able to impose the consequences that they need for their rebellion. But that the point being is that what you were saying about, these young American, well, in this case women, but these young American kids would come over and they'd never had alcohol before and they'd get smashed and messed up. Well, okay. What that really means is that even if I give somebody consequences, they're going to rebel. And as a kid, I did too.
Mm-hmm.
That's normal. And as a family, as a society, we have to have built-in functions to deal with those sorts of things. And look, not everyone is going to pick themselves up and internalize the consequences. And if you want to talk about what consequences men can impose on women, oh boy, we have to have a serious conversation about whether or not the woman is willing to internalize the consequences. And it starts by, and I saw my parents do this and I never really understood it, but they would occasionally let us get away with stuff.
Well, if it's a minor thing.
No, some of it wasn't minor. Some of it wasn't minor.
We're letting you face the consequences of your own actions.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, we'll see. It's like they're saying, well, we'll see how this goes for them.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Right. And
Yeah.
I never really understood until much later, that they picked something that they already understood what the consequence domain would be, and that I'd probably survive the consequence. and then said, oh, okay, he can experience this one on his own. But so this overprotectiveness of mothers can also be a problem. It's not just a problem of, well, I don't want any consequence to come to my kid. I won't deliver. It's not, I won't deliver consequences. I can't let any consequence happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to just let the kid, this is going to suck for you. Enjoy.
And you know, this is part of what we did back then with this exchange, with the student exchange when they were traveling, because their parents were so overprotective. And I remember there were some cases, especially with single mothers, where kids were not experiencing any consequences. And then, yeah, like I said, they would get themselves in trouble. And I'm like, well, you did it to yourself. But I had to help them, like, by legally, because I was responsible for them. It's like, yeah, you can let them experience it, but there is a limit to what you can do.
Oh yeah. There's always a limit to what you can let them do. And that's what my parents are picking ones where it's like, well, this is gonna suck for him, but nothing major is gonna happen. You know, he's not gonna go to jail, right? He's not gonna he's not gonna probably one of the big ones was we don't want him to go to the hospital because that'll be expensive for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there were limits, there were boundaries, and you know, talking with my dad later in life, he said, yeah, as you got older, they were very intentional. They let those boundaries get bigger. You know, you're supposed to be growing
Yeah.
up, and yeah.
I remember one. I was in. My dad had taken me to Mexico. I was a senior in high school. He just let me get totally messed up as I wanted to be. You know, he just said, "Keep going." So I just, if that's what you want to do.
Good
I'm not
dad.
going to stop. And we had a deep sea fishing trip the next morning.
Oh no.
So not only was I totally hungover, I was seasick at the same time.
Oh my god, this is like the worst. Yeah.
She's like, was that a good idea, son? I'm like,
Yeah. Sometimes they have to learn from their own mistakes, and then
miserable.
Well, learning from your own mistakes, if you can do it, right? You know, you're not, I mean, yes, going to the hospital would have certainly taught a lesson, but it would have been really expensive for everybody, right? Or, you know, like, and in this, and in the case, Nick, in your case, there really isn't a whole lot there that's going to be like an actual problematic consequence for you or your dad. You just get to experience a ton of pain of your own creation. So honestly, I think your dad did the right thing. I think so. And yes, okay, my goodness, we spent 45 minutes just on the concept of consequences.
Yeah.
How sad is our society that we can spend 45 minutes on just the reality of consequences?
Mhm.
Can you bring those consequences home to him? And of course you can. Father, if he's in the home, yes, he can bring consequences, to his daughter. However, what it becomes tricky is the husband-wife dynamic.
Yeah.
I would say, particularly with in the teenage years, even with the children now, especially if with daughters, it can be. I would be careful.
Oh yeah, because people twist anything, man.
Well, and how many kids now they're constantly asked at school, "How's your home life? How's your home life? How's your home life?" You know, the teachers are all up, and even if the kid doesn't think that it was a problem and they understood the lesson, when they the kids innocently and relay the story, and the teacher just loses it at that, at hearing that the dad did that, how dare he impose such consequences on the kid? And I'm intentionally being vague as to what said consequences are for TOS reasons, but what, this gets into something that I've even had to think about just as a husband is, okay, every time I deliver a consequence for anything, I am taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
To your wife and And men, hear this. If you deliver a consequence to your kids are in school.
Yeah.
The admins are all up in your kids' business. Part of the reason that schools have so many admins is so that they have enough people to make sure that all the kids are talked to frequently. That's part of the program.
I mean, a state.
You know, I remember one girl, she was
Make the kids
misbehaving.
inform on their parents.
She was misbehaving in my Spanish class when I was teaching Spanish here. She had her phone, and there was a special button, and she told me that if I upset her or if something bad happens to her anywhere, she can just dial this button, and then the special forces will appear and they will bail her out. And she was how old? 5 years old? 5 or 6 years old? I was shocked when I saw, and she showed me her phone, and she said, if something bad happens to her, if somebody says something mean, or it could be anything, and she was one of the entitled types. I saw her mother, so I could tell, yeah, that girl was going to be messed up. And yeah, nobody can impose any consequences on her, because here is the special button that she can press, and then the services will come and save her.
I mean, I've never heard about anything like that in the U.S., but I mean,
well, there is some service that kids can call if they are in danger, or if something
Seriously?
bad happens to them. Yeah. I even talked to a few teachers who were teaching kids, and they were saying like, yeah, it's actually true.
Okay.
Teachers can't do. I was trying to impose some consequences on kids, and I got in trouble with the school for doing that. It's like, okay, I'm leaving, I'm out. Like, apparently I can't do anything. I don't have any authority as a teacher. I don't have any authority, so kids can go do whatever the hell they want to do in the classroom. I can't control the discipline. If I can't control the discipline in my classroom, then I can't teach anything.
So, what consequences can we impose? Well, men, I hate to state it this way, what risks are you willing to take to impose them?
Yep.
Now,
It can all come right back in your face when she presses the come out button.
well, right, the
Once she
imposition of
files the paperwork, you're done.
the imposition of consequence can be not just a catalyst for paperwork, but it can be used against you. How many stories have we heard in our space of some guy getting zeroed out because some lawyer said, well, can you come up with any example where he ever, raised his voice, even raising the voice now? I saw that, Nick.
I raised my voice after she freaking hit me.
Well,
Hey, but that's still verbal abuse.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It even raising your voice. Hey, so guys, even raising your voice can come back to bite you. So there's an aspect here where you can kind of look at it and say, well, the state's gonna fuck me no matter what I do.
Yeah. They are the enemy. They are evil. They're tyrants. I wish they'd be, yeah.
Well, they need to be out of the business of being
Mm-hmm.
involved in families. And was listening to Pearl's stream with Professor Baskerville yesterday. That was a good stream, and he actually specifically talked about this. We need to get the state out of the family, and this is why.
Yes,
because
in our episode on natural law talked about that a bit too.
Yes, and we will. Yeah. We on our channel will probably continue to talk about this because it's necessary. Because what ends up happening is as a guy, even a red pill guy, I cannot look at a man who says, well, I don't think I can do anything because I'm sure that she's going to use it against me later. Like, I look at that guy and I go, sir, I understand. And I'm going to leave it right there because he knows that woman and his children better than I do. And
Yeah.
if he's already decided that she is on a hair trigger waiting, then I'm going to look at him and I'm going to go, dude, you're tiptoeing.
Get a lawyer right now. Get a lawyer right now.
I mean, yeah, right. Like, and you will continue to tiptoe while the lawyer does their work, right? You know, like you will do nothing, you will say nothing that could get you in trouble. And a lot of guys would say, oh, well, but he's not being a masculine man. I go, no, this is about survival now.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of churches don't understand that. These guys are trying to survive. They don't want to leave, but they've been forced to leave.
Yeah. I've seen it done to so many guys over the years.
It's just so crazy. I see women whining on the internet all the time. Where are all the good men? Why nobody wants to wife us up? Well, maybe that's why, ladies.
Well, in this particular case, I could say, okay, look, lady, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's walk this through, assuming you are everything you say you are. Because you can run to mommy state at any moment something happens that you don't like. It doesn't matter that you're a good woman today.
Yeah.
You can still make me eat the consequences at any point in time in the future. Why would I get involved with that? And during the stream yesterday, with Pearl, there was a conversation going on. And I was just like, you don't understand. This is not about fixing marriage. This is and I'm seeing a lot of this in the rhetoric in the past couple of weeks, the public rhetoric. Oh, well, all we need to do, and I think we've talked about this before on both channels, and this rhetoric was occurring before in the run up to the election of, oh, all we need it's variations of this theme. All we need to do to solve the birth rate is to fix marriage. We just need men to man up and get married. Okay. Could
There's
you
a reason why they're not.
Right. Well, could you imagine a guy today trying to do what my dad did with me in The Equalizer?
Dad did it to me. I disciplined my kids, and I was expected to do it by the church. Then it got thrown in my face.
Learned your lesson there, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, the problem that I see oftentimes is a mother is screaming at her kid in the grocery store, for example. She is trying to discipline her kid. I would never, ever intervene in that scenario. And I was visiting my friends, and I saw how the mother was talking to her kids, and she was very, very strict with them. Russian family living in Europe for many years. And I stayed with them because we were friends for a few months while I was taking my Spanish course. And she was very strict with her kids. And she told me that, Elena, I'm so happy that you don't suck my brain about how I'm supposed to train my kids, how I'm supposed to raise my kids. Because I told to myself, look, these are not my kids. Even if I disagree and I feel for the kids, I'm not going to defend the kids because I'm not their parent. And then they had a father also who was involved in their raising process. So it was a good family. And it's not my job to intervene and bail out kids. But a lot of people today, especially women, and when you go to school, there will be teachers, female teachers, who would say, oh, but he abused you. Oh, he's not supposed to do that. Oh, how dare he is.
Well,
it's like
The Bible says something different.
Let the parents do their job of parenting their kids however they want to parent them. If they want to smack their kids, maybe their kids deserved that. I remember my dad had to use a belt on me and my sister a few times too, until I figured out and I learned something. Didn't feel that nice.
No, getting belted never does. But here's a fun
It
fact
works.
for everyone listening. She survived.
Hmm.
Your kids will survive your job is not to remove consequence from the kids. That is not your job as a parent. And I think we as a culture all over the world have kind of gotten infected with this idea that our job as parents is to make sure that our kids live consequence-free lives. Wrong. You've actually created little criminals trying to do it.
Hmm.
And even if they don't go the criminal bent, you've created useless people.
Yeah.
That they can't do anything, because the moment something goes wrong and they don't understand why the world is handing them a consequence, they lose their shit. Some throw temper tantrums, some break down in uncontrollable crying. Seen it all, particularly out of the younger generations. In fact, it's only gotten worse as they get younger. So no, Gen Z is not going to save you. Gen Z has zero concept of consequence.
Or they are even worse. Their parents are even worse. There were some cases when I would tell the parents, they would complain on me. The kids would complain on me, and they would say, Elena doesn't allow us to go shopping, or there are some other restrictions there. And then their parents would reach out to the office and say, how dare she needs to bring our kid. And they would tell me what I was supposed to do while I was doing my job there and taking care of their kids, and the parents were not around. So their kids have no sense of authority, nothing, zero, and have the same attitude towards their parents, because they're like friends. Everybody is friends. Everybody is equal, right?
Nope. So, we're talking a lot about consequence here, but when we as a society, basically we're trying to change reality. We're trying to change. Look, cause and effect, right? You do something, there's going to be an effect. Society functions best when the state is the least involved in the dealing of consequence, because that consequence is not tailored to the situation. Not very well. It tends to be cookie cutter, right? Like, yeah, there's some variation based on what you did, but there isn't much. Where the parents can tailor the consequence to the kid. They can understand. They have a better understanding of where the kid is. And are there some kids that need to be handed over to the state? Yeah, there's probably a few. In any significantly large sample size, there's going to be your unrecoverables. But by handing all kids, go ahead.
When they did that back in the day, it was extremely rare. And it was a sign for the rest of the kids, like, hey, that could be you.
Mm-hmm.
Or a kid gets shipped off somewhere, or
the military was common, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, I had that threat. Oh, we're going to send you to military school. I said, okay, that sounds like fun. Better than here.
Well, but I guess what I'm getting
really
at,
it would have been is better structure than the crap I was living with for a little bit, because the mama went crazy. So,
well, but when we make the state the arbiter, the what the state is going to do is always going to be either heavy-handed or nothing, and it's going to swing between the two. Right now, we're in a nothing phase, although recent events, shall we say, have changed that a little bit. In my area, they're actually starting to arrest thieves again, despite being deep blue. Surprise, surprise. So, but 4 years of consequence, you have, 4 years of people who they haven't experienced that kind of consequence in 4 years. Oh, I can steal $900 worth of stuff and I won't get in trouble. And then now all of us, and when they get in trouble now, they ask, why am I getting in trouble? I've never gotten in trouble for this before.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's just them being low IQ. Like, actually, I mean, could a high IQ person figure out faster that this is what's happening and this is the consequence? Yes. And the high IQ person is less likely to be involved in this stuff to begin with. But it's not a perfect predictor, because there's lots of people who they've never had the consequence of being arrested for theft. So it doesn't connect in their mind that they ever would be. This is just the way things were. And so they could do it. So, right. So, this is where the state is right now. Even the state won't impose consequences for whole classes of things. And you see the effects all
They'll
around
impose
you.
consequences for stuff where people are actually innocent. That's what's fucked up.
Well,
Based on mere accusations.
Well,
they won't impose consequences on things they should, but they impose consequences and show up and ruin situations that makes everything actually worse.
Nick, that actually kind of makes sense if you think about the state as a group of humans, because the state primarily exists to enforce consequences. Like that's one of the primary purposes of state. And if you go telling the state that it can't enforce consequences on insert preferential group A, then they're going to go impose consequences on non-preferential group B.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because their job is to impose consequences.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they were treating everyone equally, so women would have the same punishment as men for the same crime committed, then it would make sense.
Never been like that.
No, and women tend to not commit the same kinds of crime as men do. Like, and we do have graded punishment, and women tend to commit crimes that are lower on the punishment scale. That data goes back decades and decades. It's not. That's actually a bit of a blank slate equalist idea right there.
Okay.
It's, all people are equal, and all people should be and now if you want to talk about the crimes where the teachers having some fun time with the kid and they get a few months, where if it's the guy teacher, he gets years. Yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about petty theft, it's not that kind of stuff. Theft, that kind of stuff tends to be more that the system has decided that women are weaker, therefore they can't. It couldn't possibly have been that they did the thing, and so they have to. Like in the case of the teachers, it's the law presumes that the man was willing and even encouraged it. So that's what they call a mitigating factor in sentencing guidelines. Like this is all written down. If you really want to go scare yourselves, go read sentencing guidelines for men and women. It's esoteric. It's not even, you have to go read case law, but sentencing guidelines is where the rubber meets the road on this stuff. And that's why, that's why I say to guys, look, if your family situation better than I do, if you don't feel comfortable imposing consequences of any kind, don't. It will come back to you. And this is why. Because for guys, the sentencing guidelines are always going to be worse for a whole class of things. But you are equal under the eyes of the law, but there is wide discretion on the application. Okay. So the system can decide how much of the law it wants to apply to you. And so you're still technically equal under the eyes of the law. A woman can be put up for the same crime that a guy can be. In almost every case. It's the details of what the consequences are that get kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
So and as guys, we have to, whenever we talk about consequences for women, we have to be aware of that. And if to any of the guys out there listening, I don't know if what you in the comments or whatever, what you were expecting me to come on here and say, but one thing I want to say, and we're not over an hour in now, and I've only now get around to saying this, I've never once laid hands on Elena in anger. The only time I've laid hands on her, she's been asking for it, shall we say. Yeah. But guys, even that could come back to bite me 10 years from now if she decides she wants to pull the ripcord. Right?
All of a sudden, it's a totally different story.
Right.
And you don't have to bring evidence.
No, you don't.
In a family
No,
law.
yeah, this is what really bothers me, because they can falsely accuse a man like she did to Unique, and then the state blindly trusts the woman. Okay, if you want consequences, let's give them the benefit of doubt, right? Let's say a man was the abusive one, he would hit her, right? But provide evidence.
Well, I'm pulling up a comment here because this comment deals with this. Did all this case law stem from SPLC? No. If only it were so easy. Honestly, if only it were that easy. This stuff has actually been around longer than SPLC has been around, and and a lot of it goes back to really y'all are going to hate this. It goes back to the temperance movement in the 1920s. Is where a lot of this stuff goes back to. A lot of it goes back. A good chunk of it goes back to the feminist movement in the late 1800s.
Yeah, it's rotten all the way through and through.
Yeah, and that's why these laws are universal across the country, and why the sentencing guidelines are similar across the country, even in the parts of the country where you would think that these are, well, okay, let's say the South, deep red South, right? Well, didn't always used to be the deep red South for one, but the South, these have been going on long enough that you're talking about Reconstruction era stuff is where some of the stuff was put down. That's what, 150 years ago now for some of it. So yeah, SPLC wasn't a thing. And for the thing about case law is it isn't law in the formal sense, which means that it can be overturned by it can be superseded by a new court ruling. But getting those court rulings is brutally difficult because judges, they really don't want to go against precedent.
They're all in on it. They're all in on it too. The bar
in the family court,
associations.
yeah. There's kickback.
They're funding for elections. All these funding for these female judges or even male judges. You have to get like these. Was it NOW or something? Women of Now or National Organization of Women. They're all in on all this campaigning elections for judges. And you think the Republican Party is going to help you? No, they're all lock in step with the feminist message.
They're making money. This is how they survive.
I was on the money side. Particularly in family court, the money is they get money by caseload. So the more cases they process, the more guilty verdicts they hand down, the more money the judges can make, not because the judges are paid individually, but the state that the judges work for gets more money for each one of these cases. Baskerville talks about the process in his book. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it on our channel as well.
Natural law, yeah.
Right. So, it's not as simple as, you're going to start hearing this quote more. H.L. Mencken, he said, for every complex problem, there's an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. And we look for simple answers in today's world, and White Claws, I'm not trying to call you out specifically, because everyone thinks that Trump is going to be this simple answer savior who's just going to come in and fix all this stuff for us. No, he's not. Not only really he can't, because he doesn't have the authority to actually do a lot of what he says he's going to do. He's not interested in it. A lot of, like it's what Nick was saying. The Republican Party is not some savior that's going to ride in and restore natural law and restore men to their proper place in the world. They're all in on this too. The Republican Party built a lot of the system that you're suffering under today. They did. I know that's not a popular thing to say right now in this ebullient mood of victory that we're in post-election, but they're not your friends. They might be your allies today. And I'm not against working with them at all. But don't try to make them into your friends.
Addressing the root problem. They're not addressing the root cause and issue, as Baskerville keeps talking about in his books. Again, read them. He talked about that with Pearl as well. Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. Then we talked about it as well.
Right. So we're gonna keep talking about it. I do expect that now we will get dragged and panned for talking about it. Because we will be viewed, we will be viewed as, oh, well, now you're anti-Republican. The tribalism has gotten a bit extreme on these issues, and I guess maybe we are. I don't know.
Not like anti.
Yeah,
them,
not.
I'm not really.
Not.
It's just
you
when
just
everybody
more realistic.
Let's just say they're not as bad as the other team.
No, they're not. It's just
that way.
I don't have. I'm not letting my hopes get in the way of my expectations. Is how I'd put it.
Some realism, not some idealistic.
Yeah, I've been an annoying realist since I was a young kid. I blame my dad. Well, we've been talking a lot about consequences and father figures as a fount of consequences, but they're also a fount of wisdom and experience and understanding of these things. My dad's been a realist since as long as I've been alive, and it rubs off on you, even if you don't realize that it's rubbing off on you, because it's just how he approached the problem of thinking about stuff. Growing up, we had an expression for people who didn't understand realism. And my dad called them the anti-dirt people. People who work with dirt have a fundamental understanding of at least some of reality.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Nick? I see you laughing over
No. Well, that was one of the good things when I was a pastor in South Dakota, and also growing up as well, as I had to interact with things as they are, not how they want them to be. And you work with animals, you work with, trees, lawn, gardens, crops, etc. You figure out what works, what doesn't, what you can change, what you can't change, and sometimes no matter what you do, everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Which is actually a key point for consequence. Sometimes you could even do the right thing. And guys, we're talking about imposing consequences on women. Sometimes I could be doing the right thing. I could save a woman from herself. And I can still it can still go to hell anyway.
Yeah.
Your wife can still choose to do something that is going to have drastic downstream consequences. You can tell her no. You can say, look, here's what's going to happen. You can even say, hey, look, if you do this, I'll have to leave. And you know what? She can still choose to go ride that dick. And so, you know, when we talk about the imposition of consequences, a lot of us immediately go towards this corporeal or sort of physical. No. When I impose consequences on Elena, I don't do it by after the fact. We had a very clear conversation very early in the relationship about what the consequence would be of returning to the carousel. For you guys following along, if you know what I'm referring to, you know. And she and it was a very simple conversation. It's like, look, I discovered that my ex was convinced that I had no idea what she was doing. I found out in 2 weeks. It took me 2 weeks to find out what she was doing. Okay, she thought that she had me, you know, sewed up, and because her whole victimology was that I wasn't paying enough attention to her. So in her mind, of course, she was getting away with it. You know, and she had this whole plan about how she was going to run the relationship at clock out for another 4 months, and yeah, oh yeah, she had a whole plan for it. I called her out. I dropped paper on her, and I said, "Look, Elena, you do that, I will do it to you too. I will find out, and I'm not going to raise my voice. Even I'm certainly not going to get physical. You will just come back to your stuff on the front porch with a packet of papers to sign on top of it. And that will be the end of it."
It's no church counseling where you bad man should be all forgiving and tolerate that.
Tried the counseling once. It was just well, actually, interestingly, on the counseling, and I've told this story before. It wasn't just man bad. It was the counseling. So we did 3 sessions of man bad, and then on the 4th session, the counselor finally turned to my ex, and you know, I got to do my, you know, download of my issues in the marriage, and you know, the counselor turns to my ex and says, "So, do you think there's anything you could do here, you know, to work with some of these?" And my ex goes, "I'll have to think about it." That was the last session we ever went to. She didn't want to go anymore.
Well, because even the council called you out.
Well, the counselor wasn't trying to call her out. It was, you know, like the counselor was treating it as kind of a you know, well, okay, you had your issues. They're actually just running their process, right? You have your issues, you know, you have your issues over here. You know, can we work on some of these things to meet in the middle, et cetera, et cetera? You know, trying to do the counseling thing in the most basic way possible. Nope.
It's usually how it is.
Yeah, right. And so look, you know, Nick is talking, you know,
The
about
guys generally bend over backwards and cuck themselves, and she's running roughshod over the relationship, continue to increase disrespect, and chances are she might have already stepped out and monkey branching already.
well, and that is what was happening. But
Yeah.
you know, so guys, you know, Nick is talking about, you know, all this man bad counsel. Look, even if you get a decent counselor, the woman can still say, "Nah, I'm good. Bye."
Yeah. Well, I know what
Yep.
consequences I'll have if I ever choose to go that way that your ex did.
There's
so.
consequences.
Well, right. But there's no need for raised voice. There's no need for physical anything.
Mhm.
I am not going to
No.
give her something to work with in court. No, your stuff will be out front, undercover, and there'll be a packet of papers for you to sign on top of it. And that will be when you know that I know. Okay. I'm not going to play the game of, oh, try to save the marriage. Oh, no. You've already decided what your value level on the marriage is. Bye-bye.
Well, exactly. And this is where I'm struggling with even some manosphere content creators who are promoting more like a ThreadCon narrative there. And you guys could probably talk more about it on your channel, where they say, man up, basically. Save your marriage, do your best, work on your money muscles game, right? And then dance monkeys dance, how Steve would say. Like completely disregarding that she still can decide to leave the guy.
Well, my question for those creators, don't know who they are, don't really care, would be this. I already did that. Why would I do that again?
It doesn't work.
It didn't work the first time. Why would it work now?
It may work depending on how.
No.
But chances are, if they're catching it at that point, it's probably already too late.
Well,
probably already too late.
Here's the deal. We can look at this and we could say, "Oh, you should fight for your marriage." Okay, I fought for my marriage for 6 months. 6 hard months. I never once raised my hands to my ex either. Never once. Now, there were yelling matches because that's where we were. But I would go take my rage and I would go get in the car and I would drive and I would end up in a parking lot somewhere screaming at the windshield. That was how I dealt with it.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
Sorry, Nick. I feel you, brother. But the point here is that the actual data suggests that trying to fight for your marriage means, but if you gotten to the point where you have to fight for your marriage, it is already beyond saving.
Yeah.
And it used to be in the manosphere that we would counsel guys, hey, look, it's over. Get a good lawyer. It's over. Now we're saying it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Well, because so Shaw did a reaction video. This is Shaw. He's been on with both of us at this channels at this point, I think.
No, not on mine yet. We will invite him at some point.
I thought he was in the past, but okay. Anyway, not that's not terribly relevant. But he was reacting to this video that the title was, "Is the red pill blue pill?" And I do want to say something here. This idea of go fight for your marriage and that's what makes you a true man. That's a blue pill idea.
It is a blue pill idea. I agree.
No, it is. And because when you go back to the older red pill, the Steve Sandman era, the Roosh era, the Dow Rock era, right? Their advice would have been, go get a good lawyer.
Yeah.
You're done. Now, as a Christian, I understand this drive to say, no, we've got to save the marriage. I understand that.
It does happen, just it's not common.
But why does it have to be just the man trying to save his marriage and not the woman? The woman doesn't care if your marriage collapses.
That's the only time it usually works, is if the woman is willing as well.
Exactly. If she already made up her mind that the marriage is over, then it's over, no matter what the man does.
Well, okay. On that, though, looking back at my relationship, my prior relationship, she hadn't decided it was done until I started fighting.
Oh, what do you mean? She was cheating on you, but
no. The cheating started much later.
Oh, okay.
Fighting for my marriage is what ended my marriage.
Oh.
And this is something, this is something
that the marriage on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is something that the old red pill used to talk about. Like there's old Reddit threads on this exact concept. Okay. We used to talk about this, but now we have this idea, and this idea is not a red pill idea. It's a tradcon idea. Is that the only way that you can be a man, that you can be a true man, is to sit there and fight for your marriage, because men are supposed to fight. Men are supposed to swoop in and save it.
Well, man up. This
exactly.
is we are men here.
That's what they told me. I'm like, I'm forbidden from any contact. And I tried to go through you to do something, and you did nothing for 6 months.
Legally forbidden.
I saw my kid. Yeah, and I tried to get them to do anything. Initially, I said, "This is wrong. This is what's going on." I filed charges within the church. I'm like, "But you need to fight for marriage." I'm like, "Okay, well, what else can I do?" I pray. I go to the gym. I work on myself. I get stabilized as much as I can. Still not good enough.
Well,
you abandoned your kids. I'm like, well, they took them. And you let that happen. You gave them money to do that. And you're saying, I didn't fight for my marriage, for filing paperwork because she tried to take my kids permanently away from me.
I have a question for
I'm
you
like, how
guys.
fucking stupid are you? So I shouldn't fight for my kids now, huh?
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Fuck you. Not you, Elena, but
When you hear guys tell you go work on your money muscles game, is it a cope to what is really happening in our society?
No.
No?
These are all things you should do as men. Okay.
Okay.
Acting as if that's going to be everything that's required to save the world, save your marriage, save yourself. That is the cope. Those are good things to do.
Mhm.
Do not assume that they are sufficient. That is what's going to save your marriage. I mean, you know, I was going to the gym for about half my marriage, the last half of it. I was going to the gym. Okay. That didn't save it. I did all of the romantic things that you're supposed to do. That didn't save it.
If
I
she
did all
doesn't want to save it, nothing you do will
Well,
save it.
that's yes. I doubled my income.
Exactly.
I doubled, guys. So I did money. I doubled my income over the course of the marriage. I did muscles. I was in the gym. Okay. Now we can say that the romantic stuff is anti-game. I you know, and I get that. Now that's what I was being told to do by other people.
Right. Right.
You know, got bad advice, but
Fruit
you know,
nights and everything. I did all that. Yeah, I did it.
yeah. Exactly. Money, muscles, okay, a little anti-game there. And the guys will say, oh, well, that's the mistake you made. No.
Well, we
No.
didn't know. You didn't know. I didn't know.
Right. Okay.
That great. We didn't know. What do you
none of that saved the marriage. None of it. And none of it was going to.
Exactly.
And that's the mistake that we're making. One of the problems of consequence is, particularly amongst people who haven't had consequences imposed on them, is they think that all you have to do is impose a consequence and the person will, to use Christian language, repent and turn away from their behavior. Yeah, I believe the Bible actually talks about how that doesn't always work out that way.
Doesn't always work. No.
Okay. So, you know, money, muscles, game, frame, you can have all of that in spades. You can be Mr. Perfect. You can be Mr. Wonderful. Okay.
And a woman will still step out on you.
Yeah.
And can throw you under the bus.
She doesn't have to. And
she
not
can.
all of them. She can. And you know, we hear a lot of women, you know, when you say all women are like that, they go, barr, you know, they start barking, right? No. And Elena and I we've actually talked about this offline. It's like, I understand, because even she gets her hackles up a little bit when I say stuff like this in private conversations. Like, no, I understand that you're not, but you can. You have the agency to behave this way for any reason you want to. And this is why the council at some point has to be, and the old red pill understood this. This is why the council has to be, at a certain point, go get a good lawyer.
Yeah.
It's over. Because if you've gotten to that point, that is the only consequence you have left to impose.
But then she can still take the kids away from you,
Yep.
depending on the case. Look at
you can't change reality. All you can do is the best you can. You're in survival.
Yeah.
Survival. Yeah, exactly. You're in survival mode now. Yes, she's going to take the kids from you. Yes, your name is going to be dragged through the mud in court. No, you didn't actually do the things you're going to be accused of. We get you. We get you, brother. We understand. But staying in that marriage is going to destroy you just as certain as all this other stuff will.
Yeah. And this is exactly how women destroy their kids' lives and even their own lives later on. They just don't realize it. And we talked about it with Steve and Unique a few weeks ago, I think. How women destroy their kids' lives.
Inertia? Is that inertia?
I think it was on my channel, but then you guys probably have
Oh.
covered it on your channel as well.
I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
Inertia, I think that episode was a little more with a political bent, but yeah, this idea. So okay. So to answer the question, what consequences can man impose on a woman? Divorce. Realistically,
Yeah.
the state has made it clear that your options are whatever she lets you do and divorce.
But then
And
in divorce, it's still tilted towards her.
I didn't say it wasn't. I just said
Yeah.
that's what you get. And when I say whatever she'll let you get away with, understand that she might let you get away with things specifically so that she can use them later.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you as a man have to know where your woman sits on all these issues, and understand that you might do something today that she's going to use against you later, and that's a risk you have to take. And it's a risk that I take every day with Elena. People say, well, you're why are you so down and negative on marriage? You got married. What's wrong? Well, it was the only way to get her into the country legally. Yes, we did the legal immigration thing. I'm kind of an idiot, huh?
Imagine that.
Yeah, it took us a year to get the documents sorted out.
Yeah,
right?
it took us a year just to get her entry documents sorted out. It took longer than that to get it all sorted out.
Well,
It's
yeah.
about a 3-year process. And that's the easy, quick process. There's more complicated ways to do it. But so Elena knows what the consequences are. And that's really what I did. It's early on. I made sure. Now, early on in our relationship, I was fresh off a divorce, but I wasn't emotional about it anymore. And I was surrounded by some good men who kind of set me on the right path, and some of it was pretty red pill stuff. Like I was reading red pill stuff all the way back at the age of 18, but there was this contention in my mind with what the church was teaching me, because the church was teaching me very different stuff. I went down the church route because the church is supposed to be this font of moral wisdom about dealing with particularly relationships between men and women. And that ended with me and my wife screaming at each other for 6 months. So I knew the red pill stuff, and I had a couple guys, and they just came back and they just confirmed it for me. Yep, that's the right stuff. And so I went back into it, and of course the red pill had changed quite a bit, and I started reading up on it. But Elena will tell you that I was red pill throughout our entire relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that I red pilled her, and that's a whole different story for a different day. But I did not do it to her right away, and I didn't want to have to do it, because you kind of create little monsters when you do.
Well, at least I'm on your side, and I'm trying to help you guys. I'm not all bad. Yeah, you have to suffer through our messages sometimes.
I mean, all's well that ends well, right? But yeah, there isn't a lot of actual consequence you can impose on the modern woman, and that is just the state of reality that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why so much of our advice focuses not on really imposing consequence, but kind of on like, well, there isn't much you can do. Here's what you can do. And you can
withdraw attention. You can do some things, but
yes. Now, on withdrawing attention, if the woman's already checked out, it's actually a good way to test. If she's checked out already and you withdraw attention, she's going to say, "Oh, he's really not paying attention, I can get away with a lot more. It's actually part of how I was able to find out that she was cheating was as I wouldn't say I withdrew my attention because I was actually paying very close attention to what she was doing. I did withdraw my time. So she thought I was paying attention to other things. I was actually looking for evidence, but that was a little bit of here, I'll use a Russian word, maskirovka.
Maskirovka. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thinking back, could you say that my yelling at my ex was a consequence? Not really. It was certainly a result of what was going on, but she was actually, in the end, it was if you want to call it a consequence, it was a consequence she was looking for. She wanted it. And guys, do not underestimate women. They will push you because they are looking for that thing that they can use in court.
Oh yeah. Mine always just strike me. And she'd say, hit me. I'm like, no, never did. So
yeah, if a woman says that, guys, if a woman says, why don't you just hit me? Go get a good, and I mean a bulldog, just ripping to shreds lawyer. Because she's telling you how she wants to get out of the relationship. She's past deciding that she wants out. She's telling you how she plans on winning as she's leaving.
Yeah. Still used it just in a different way, which is bullshit.
Well, the state is stacked against guys in every possible way.
So you don't even have to do it. She can make the accusation, but certainly don't help them by actually doing it.
Exactly. No. Yeah.
So guys, if you were looking for an episode, we were going to come in and we were going to say you must physically control your women. Yeah, sorry, we're not saying that, and we are not going to say that here. No.
I did put it on a thumbnail just to get people in.
Yeah, we're not going to say that here. In fact, our advice is do not lay hands on women at all. No. They will use it against you the moment that they think they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I did say it before, but I'm going to say it again. I was watching the shows that Donovan Sharp was doing, and he was analyzing the real life situations, behavior of women. And women were begging for consequences from the police officers. Whenever they don't get consequences from
you might have misunderstood what they were asking for. Think about it more as what Nick said.
Mm-hmm.
She was begging the officer to do something to her that she could use in court to get money from the state.
Oh.
Yeah. For women, no. Women will never beg for the actual consequence unless.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the BDSM types are, that's more play than it is. No, women do not beg for real consequence. If women are asking for a consequence, fucking run.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a consequence. They're looking for leverage.
Leverage. Yeah. So
yes.
how do you talk to women and tell them that consequences are good for them?
You don't.
When you know that they can use it against men as leverage.
You don't.
Damn.
Do you know what we do with women? And we've talked about this on our channel quite a bit. Do you know what you do with them? You walk away.
Walk away. Yeah.
You leave these women to their own devices.
Mm-hmm.
People often, this is again a mistake that a lot of men make, is we tend to view consequence as a positive action. I take an action. I do something. I insert myself and try and fix a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, the most consequential thing you can do to a person is to quietly turn around and walk away and never speak to them again. And if society as a whole starts doing that to these women, and they find out that there's no one there to save them, there's no one there to rescue them, that you know, we call it the wall in the red pill. Okay.
Yeah.
We do. But eventually these women hit a certain point where they become, the wall is great, but I'm going to use a slightly different term. These women, they hit 40, 45, they become wallpaper. Well, Nick, I'm actually looking at the wallpaper in the background of your video right now.
Good.
Okay. How much attention does the average human pay to the wallpaper in their hotel room when they walk in?
Like none.
None.
I'm not saying it's not important. Like you'll probably notice if it's terrible. But
Right. You would notice it. You'll notice when it's dilapidated.
It's so funny, Darlene. You brought it up. I saw Whoopi Goldberg withholding sex from men at your age, and I left a comment there saying, "And nobody cares. Nobody wants to fuck you anyway."
Exactly. Nobody cares. That is the ultimate punishment for women, is for nobody to care
Steve.
about them. Go ahead.
Steve has something. He sent a text to our group chat. So
Okay.
Oh, nice. Steve is watching us.
oh, yes. So Sandman, he's usually here with us. He says there may be a greater risk of not imposing consequences. She will feel dominant without consequences being put. She will feel dominant without consequences, but putting her in her place throughout the relationship might lower risk. Of course, there are no guarantees.
Well, that's actually
He's
kind of what I
saying
did.
he
That's
says
kind
you're
of what I
damned
did.
if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, yes. And for guys, yes, that is always true. But okay, look at how I dealt with Elena. I told her what the consequences would be early on.
And I knew it because you already did it to one woman. So
Right.
Evidence is there.
Right. So I had evidence to back up my claim. So I am not, I guess, am I imposing a consequence? I'm probably not imposing it right then, but I am letting Elena know that you step out, here's what the consequence is. And this might be in the limited context of what men can actually do. This might be one of the few things that you can do that actually works, because you're not saying, oh, you're not saying, oh, you know, this is I'm going to do this to you right now. You're saying, look, if this behavior, then this result.
Yeah.
Okay.
Future consequence
Right.
for the
And
action. Mhm.
right. And I'm just saying, this is the future consequence for this action. That's what you get. It is not as strong as actually imposing a consequence. And here Steve is right. Okay. It does not have that same strength in being able to come in and actually impose a consequence. And I completely agree with that. But again, risk versus reward analysis. In my case, having just gone through a relationship where I caught my ex cheating. Now, I caught her over text. I didn't, catch her in the act. That's actually pretty rare, despite what the movies would have you think, catching him in the act. But Elena, she knew. Oh, this guy already divorced one chick for stepping out. Clearly, he doesn't have a problem doing it. And for you guys who you haven't been through that, okay, you might not have that, but you still say it. You still enumerate what the future consequence will be. And
you stick to it, because the thing is, a lot of men, and this is what Rollo was saying, don't explicate, demonstrate.
No, it's demonstrate, don't explicate.
And this is what I say, don't explicate, demonstrate. I just reversed them.
Okay.
So yeah, just saying it, and when she pushes your boundaries, this is what I notice with you, darling. Every time, like I try to do something crazy, and then you tell me no, and then guiding me, and imposing some minor consequences, like throughout the relationship, also helps to keep a woman in check. Because if you just tell it once, but then she doesn't see the actions, and women keep shit testing men all the time.
Okay. We're going to talk about a consequence that I have used, I cannot recommend this consequence for every guy, because this is one that actually has an official name in the judicial lexicon. But I do have the ability to disable Elena's cards unilaterally. And she went a little crazy a couple months ago with one of her cards. Cards still disabled. Took us 6 weeks to clear out the cardboard leftovers of her actions. That's how much action there was. 6 weeks of cardboard. Now we only do recycle every other week, but so it was really 3 weeks, but still 3 weeks of clearing out. Now I can do that in part because she's agreed to be subject to that. This isn't the first time I've done it. Now, that does have a term in the judicial lexicon. That would be women could claim financial abuse. Elena could claim later on that what I did was financial abuse, and the courts would agree with her. So that is a risk that I have chosen to take to protect the family financially. And guys, you're going to have to decide on your own, on the basis of your own relationship and your woman, what you can do. For a lot of you guys out there, this one will get thrown back in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to recommend it necessarily as a strategy. You know, again, you guys have to be cognizant of what your relationship is and what it isn't. So, Steve, I like the comment. You are right. It does work better when the woman is, you know, there is greater risk of not imposing consequences. It's absolutely true. And if you cross some line with the woman you're with and you impose a consequence that she's determined she's going to use against you, well, you can find yourself in court, and that's just a risk you guys are going to have to take. You know, we're guys. We take risks anyway. It comes with the job description. It's sad that we have to worry about it at this
Guilty by
level.
existing.
Yeah, guilty by
Yeah.
guilty by existence. Yeah. So, yeah, there are no guarantees either way. The things that work for Elena and I might not work in your relationship, and that's kind of like when I was thinking about this, when we were talking about this during our planning, I was like, you know, I would love to be able to get out there and say, guys, you can do X, Y, and Z, but not A, B, and C. And I'd love to be able to, guys, but I can't, because if I do, I will have to suffer with you through court and through, you know, the child custody battles. And frankly, I'd really rather not see you go through that.
Yeah, it also depends on the women, what kinds of women are. Not all women are going to behave the same way I behave. They may have a
Right.
different view on that, and
Right.
it
So
totally depends on each individual situation.
yeah, guys,
They
you
all
do
can do that to you, but they all can do that to you.
right. You have to accept it's all women are like that. All women can do that.
Mhm.
All women can be whores. It doesn't mean they all are, but all women have the agency to do so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you
go ahead.
ahead.
Adam.
well, I was just saying, and if you guys, you must consider this in everything you do now. That just because your woman doesn't and hasn't yet does not mean that she won't
What you want.
and could not in the future. Past performance does
Especially-
not guarantee your future results.
But you can also predict it if you see who she's hanging around with.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes. Oh, there's many things you can look at. For example, here's one that I've seen happen to many guys. Does she want to change churches? Let's say you go to a fairly conservative church. If she wants to change churches, and that church, I have yet to see it work any other way. maybe it has. I'm sure there's an example out there. But they always want to change church to a more egalitarian liberal church. She's telling you, that's her way. That's her way, her womanese telling you that she doesn't like the message that this church is preaching about her, and that it's time to move to one that will preach a more tolerable message for her.
Tolerable.
Oh, I just connected a dot. It was never that expressly, but it was all of a sudden, oh, they have this Bible study. It was all with these, wanted me to go to these Bible studies, all these egalitarian churches. I'm like, and then I would say my piece, and everybody like, your husband is a bird.
Well, I watched this happen because we went to a fairly conservative set of churches growing up, and I watched this happen with other families. The wife would drag the family away from the church, and they would end up at some other egalitarian church, and either the guy would end up neutered and in divorce court, or the whole purpose was to justify her headed to divorce court. Or, as we would find out many years later,
Wasn't going to change.
well, or as we would find out many years later, in a few cases, there was a guy who was going to that church that she wanted.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All of the above happened.
Mm-hmm.
And moms and dads out there, your kids, we see this shit and we understand it. We aren't that stupid. Now, I think my parents actually did. I think they did understand at some level that I knew somewhat what was going on, because they would openly talk about it and they would talk about it with us. But I'm not sure if they understood just how much we understood. So,
Well, like about other kids, or
yeah, no, about what was going on with the other families.
Okay.
You know, just why? Because it would come up. Well, why did this family leave? You know, I was friends with their kids. Why'd they leave? Why did my friend leave?
Yeah.
It would come up. So you had to talk about it.
And the churches still didn't give any consequences.
Nope.
Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
Well, even the conservative one, with the conservative ones, I think they kind of felt like they were in a rock and a hard place, because what are they going to do? They're already leaving. Right.
Well, they're reinforcing the point that the church leadership, of course, is generally masculine. Of course, it's designed by God to be masculine, right? Well, they're reinforcing the idea that a man, in some form, even the church authorities, cannot impose consequences on a woman.
Yeah.
They're perpetuating the problem.
Yeah, by letting her decide which church the family attends, she is very independent in the family. He is not in charge.
Definitely. And there were lots of families like that, even at the conservative churches. Lots of families. Oh, man, I have names that are just rolling through my head. I won't say them publicly because, they're not involved in this. But, anybody who's listening from, who knows me in my personal life, they know the names. If I were to list them, they'd start nodding their heads. So I would, if I was counseling a man, I would say, look, you need to define what the boundaries are early in the relationship, much like I did with Elena. Even if you don't have the credibility of having been through a divorce where you found out she was cheating, do it anyway.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose anything by doing that. And the risk there is, of course, she comes back and she says, well, I felt like I was under duress because he told me that he would divorce me if I did this and that. And so I felt like I was trapped. That's
Really?
Good riddance.
Well,
Good riddance.
right. Yeah, good riddance. And and they will try and say that because they felt trapped, of course, that you mentally abused them. And women have actually tried to convince Elena that she's being
Mentally abused.
That's what they do, the sisterhood.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Team
is why I
woman.
don't
Let's
have,
take
like,
you
at the
away from team
moment,
or man.
women start.
See, Steve is right. Steve's points keep coming back.
My
There's-
advice to women, like especially married women, if the sisterhood tries to convince you that your husband is horrible, just ignore it and like cut it out. You don't need that sisterhood. You don't need the women chirping into your ears telling you how horrible your husband is, because this will ruin your relationship with your husband. This is why I don't have a lot of female friends, and I don't want.
well,
them.
actually, here's ladies. I'm going to rephrase what Elena said because she hasn't actually been through this. These women want to ruin your relationship. They want to see you suffer. You, the women, your girlfriends want to see you suffer. Why? Because they're suffering and you should share in their pain.
Yeah, misery loves company.
Yeah. So to any women out there listening, when your girlfriends come tell you that the guy, you know, when you complain about my guy, he imposed this consequence, you know, I'm using our language for the show, but you know, you girls know what I mean. You come out and you say, "Oh, my man did this," and your girls go, "Oh, girlfriend, you got to get away from him. That's the big A. That's the big abuse." You know, like you got to. That is not her helping you. That is her helping herself.
Yep.
And then when they're gone, they're gonna say, "Oh, can you believe she did that?" That's what happened. What happened to me? I found all the text messages where they, all the sisterhood and he's making expectations. Oh, blah blah blah, all the contempt, everything.
Mhm.
That's everything. You know, kissing someone with facial hair somehow. You know, when having a growing a mustache apparently is abuse. You know.
Okay. Whatever happened to my body, my choice?
What?
Whatever happened to my body, my choice?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, apparently it was too rough, so it hurt her.
Oh,
Poor baby.
yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah, but
girls,
they do this.
when you hear stuff like that, those women are stretching. They're stretching for a reason. Remember, their goal is to get you to suffer with them. So they're stretching for a reason why you need to suffer with them.
Yeah,
okay
they
there,
want.
Nick?
Just laughing and drinking water at the same time. Not a good thing. All right.
Yeah, they want you to be single, just as they are, so that they have.
No, it's not. It's not about single or
They don't have to be single. A lot of them are married.
Yeah. It's about they want you to suffer with them. Your girlfriends are not your friends. Your girlfriends are competition at best. They're your enemy at worst.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In fact, as far as I'm convinced, most women cannot have real friends outside of, like, you know, your sister. You know,
Well,
family.
even with sister, it can be tricky.
As I said.
Yeah.
But sisters and relatives are about the closest women get to true friends.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's all perfect there, because I've watched sisters destroy their sisters' lives too.
Mm-hmm. It's female nature.
Guys, you need to be super careful around her sister, and I mean super careful, because her sister has pre-selected you for her.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And okay, you want to talk about consequences? Holy shit, are there consequences? You know, and you have to really set up boundaries there too. And there I would be a little more forceful and overt about the boundaries. She's around her sister. She is not. You're not married. You're not in a relationship with this woman. No, but yeah, it's so even your sister can be your best friend and your worst enemy all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
actually can. I watched so many movies. Why I agree, guys, it's because there are so many Russian movies that I've seen that portray exactly that, how sisters destroy each other's lives, and then they steal each other's boyfriends from each other. They cheat on each other's husbands, and yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, guys, don't deal with your wife's sister. It is never worth it. I don't care if she's the younger, hotter model or not. It's never worth it. I mean, then the thing is, by doing that, here's the other thing, guys. When you do actually step out of line, and this is for the guys, when you actually do something like that, you lose all authority to impose any consequence whatsoever
On both of them.
on anybody. Well, I mean on your wife specifically, but yes, on both of them.
You because her sister can blackmail you.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. You lose the ability to do anything. It is just not worth it.
Yeah.
Which gets to another sort of facet of consequence. Like your dad has the authority to impose consequences on you because of the role and authority granted to him as a father. That is his role. That is the authority that's been granted to him by natural law. If you're Christian, by biblical scripture. I mean, it's all over the scripture. New Testament, Old Testament. I'm sure Nick is just watching pages and pages of Bible verses roll behind his eyes right now. Like this is this is baked into how it works. Okay. You can lose your authority if you screw up. Like the cheating thing that that I did, that works both ways. So guys, you do have to have the moral authority. I'm going to use that evil M word that no one likes, but you do have to retain the moral authority to impose, if you want to be able to impose any consequence at all. Like, I'm not saying that guys who cheat, they might file paperwork first and they might impose that consequence, but that's not really a consequence on her. You decided to cheat. It's not really a consequence at that point. So that's just
I think that some guys would think that if a woman can cheat, that they can cheat too. Egalitarian equalism.
If she agrees to it, but
the second that one person steps out like that, just do the paperwork and move on.
Yeah. I don't see any value in trying to play that game. You're going to burn a lot of energy. And here's the deal, guys. Let's talk. Let's do some realism, some real talk here, some realism. Multiple women, particularly when the women don't know about each other, you have to spend a lot of time hiding from at least one from the other. Sometimes you have to hide both from each other. You're going to spend a lot of money on this. And what universally ends up happening is somebody figures out what you're doing, because even if you have all the perfect excuses for why your time isn't there, the money stops adding up. Something falls out. You've probably heard a lot of guys say, I don't know, why would I want more than one woman? One is too much as it is. Yeah, just keep remembering that, guys. And the guys out there pushing polygyny. Okay, I mean, if both women agree to it, morally I have my issues with it, but practically it's like, well, I can't stop you from, I can't stop the three of you from doing it, 3 or 4 or whatever. So now I think that there's going to be severe consequences down the line if that becomes a popular thing to do. And we've talked about that in a way old episode in our back catalog on the resurgence. But in general, most people only want to deal with one other person. And there is an expectation there that you are for each other, at least by one party. And people say, oh, well, only one party, and if the other party doesn't have that expectation, think about it this way. So let's say the guy expects to be able to cheat and he does not make that clear to the woman beforehand. That's called a covert contract. Okay. Don't do that.
Also called adultery, but
Well, yes, but and if for the non-Christians out there, it's a covert contract, right? You never told her what the expectations were in the run-up to the marriage. So she has one set, you have a different set, and eventually she's going to find out, and she's going to use it to destroy you in court. There's no benefit, guys, to doing any of that. If you want to be able to step out and have other women, make sure she knows about that, and then she can make an informed choice to leave or stay. And guys, if she chooses to leave, let her go. You don't get to impose consequences on somebody who chooses to leave once they've left. That it's done, it's over.
Especially when you're trying to change the rules after the fact, after she has agreed to be in a monogamous relationship with you, and then you suddenly change your rules for her.
So don't think you can change the rules midstream, but it's probably going to cost you a lot. And she's not really going to understand why you're doing it. This is why a lot of marriages, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll fix my marriage by going to an open marriage.
Yeah, this is what
the stats again on this are bright line clear that something like 95% of those fall apart within a few years. Oh, hey, we know.
Well, there's no trust. There's no trust.
Right.
It's just, what's the point of being? Well, I don't see the point.
Nick, there's a famous example of this in associated with the red pill community.
I know.
Destiny. Idiot. Gets himself into an open marriage. And the moment she finds a new dick, she leaves. Like, again.
Guys were warning him.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
The whole red pill was saying, look, dude, she's going to leave. She's gorgeous. She's going to leave. And she did, shockingly enough. And guys, the reality is, if she's asking, it's because she wants to leave.
Yeah, she's already betrayed you.
She's already
betrayed you.
Open relationships. Yeah, this is a red flag.
You're done.
She's not going to be loyal. Yeah.
No, you're already betrayed. Get out.
Right. So, if Elena came and asked for an open relationship, guess what? Her stuff would be out front with paperwork to sign, right? I won't be messing around with that. I'm not interested in it. And there'll be guys, but wouldn't you want to be able to go out and get different women? Fuck no. I work. I enjoy my work. I don't want to spend that much time and effort chasing fucking women. They're just okay.
It almost seems like some people's mission in life is women. Huh.
Yeah, it does seem like
chasing tail is their mission in life.
Chasing
tail.
Or getting laid.
How sad.
The recent one I've seen, even in the red pill, like the hyperfocus is on getting laid, making whatever efforts you need to make so that the woman spreads her legs.
People say, isn't that why you go to the gym? I'm like, no.
Look, if you're going to the gym for any other reason than to keep yourself in shape for yourself, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And now, as far as the red pill guys are concerned, I've talked to enough of them to know that they all agree with that statement. So, this is more for the other guys out there. No, if you're going to the gym to keep your wife around, you've already lost. Yeah. I tried it. It didn't work. Shockingly enough. And it never will. If she's decided, and back to consequences. If she's decided to leave, all you can do, if she has decided to leave, all you can do is let her go.
Mm-hmm.
If she wants another, just let her go.
Right. So when can I not impose a consequence on a woman? Believe it or not, when she decides to leave is when I can't. Because she's already decided that she's not under my authority. I no longer have the authority to impose the consequence. I might file the paperwork first. And I believe you should as a guy. I believe you should file first in that case. But if she's already decided to leave, open marriages, cheating, whatever, don't fight for it. You no longer have the moral authority to impose a consequence anyway. Stop.
And don't think that she hasn't already done something with somebody else. You just might not know about it.
In fact, very likely you don't know about it.
Yeah.
Although you'll probably find out at some point.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's usually afterwards, and it's usually through a friend. Now, I did see, how I found out was the text messages she was sending back. And she thought I couldn't see the text message flash through on her screen. I'm like, whatever.
And then she installed the password.
Oh, she installed the password, but the notification comes up even on the lock screen. And,
Yeah.
And I just read the name. If I recall correctly. Okay, I won't say it.
Or she didn't come up with some female name for your for your boyfriend.
That wouldn't have worked because
Yeah, I know.
you can still see the content of the text
content,
message. And,
yeah.
You know, when it's a bunch of kissy face emojis, I'm sorry, guys. That is, girls don't send lots of kissy face emojis and you know, eggplant emojis to each other.
Oh, they do something. I send to some of my friends a few smiling faces.
Oh, smiley faces are different. No, I'm talking.
Yeah.
No, there's a very specific set of emojis that all you guys know what are. That women don't send those to other women.
Okay, yeah, those ones.
But also just even the content of the message, I could read it over. I was sitting next to her and she thought I couldn't see it, and you know, and I didn't know what the exact was, but you pick out I didn't read I couldn't see the whole message because the phone was angled, but you know, it's like
another sign.
Oh yeah, yet another sign. She angles the phone away from you. So, but you know, it was just, and then I heard from a friend later who told me the full story of what was going on. The confirmation comes later, even if you you know, as I said earlier in the stream, catching them in the act is actually really rare, despite what the movies would have you believe. When movies are trying to tell you that when they show you catching in the act, they're actually trying to get you to not pay attention to all the other red flags. They want you to believe that you will catch them in the act. You won't.
Yeah.
So that's a whole propaganda line of thought for a different day. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to say on the topic of consequences, other than just to keep reiterating, there's not many you can. There are things you can do to lose the right to the moral authority to impose them at all. And you each will have to do a risk assessment for yourselves in your own marriage, in your own relationship, if you're not married, about what you can and can't do. Guys, if you're in a current relationship with somebody who is not on the consequence program, who is wild and rambunctious, you will not be able to impose them midstream. The only thing you can do is walk away, get a different one, and vet for this next time you do this.
The more men check out from relationships, the better chance we have that women will improve their attitude. Because they will become desperate at some point. They will figure out that their attitude, their entitlement, it's not going to work. They will have to change their tactics and strategy, their approach to men. So if men, and I don't want to use this word collectively, but I can't come up with anything else right now, decide to check out from relationships and not engage with women at all, it will be beneficial later. It could be beneficial. Eventually.
This is an eventually strategy. And I also, you know, to be perfectly frank, most men won't. Most men think with the little head, not the big head.
Yeah.
So, and women know that. And so we're going to have to come up with different strategies for dealing with this. That said, marriage rates are declining. They have been declining, and they will continue to decline because more and more young men grew up in households where not only was their household broken, but their parents' household was broken when they were growing up. We've been doing this for 60 years now. We have grandpas who, were born in broken houses.
Yep.
We have grandmas who were born in broken houses. That's, sad for one, but the men are collectively checking out, and no, a political win will not change that because it doesn't change the past 60 years.
Yeah, and it doesn't fix the problem.
Oh, no. Checking out does not fix the problem. That it is a...
No, I mean the political.
No, the political stuff it's downstream of all of this anyway. Checking out in general, though, it doesn't solve the problem. It's a consequence.
Yeah,
it is imposing a consequence. But it's... I'm not going to say it's weak, but it's indirect. It's not obvious to the women that men are doing this and why men are doing this.
Well, if women bothered to ask men why, I bet they would find the answer. They just don't want to hear it.
No, most men couldn't articulate this.
Well, if women cared to know why men check out, not just imposing, this is my standard, this is my rule, I want to be wifed up.
No, if women cared, they could come ask a man who's willing to give them an honest answer. But they won't. The women won't come over here for an honest answer about why.
Right.
The red pill has been trying to give women the honest answer for over a decade, at least.
They just don't want to listen. It's inconvenient for them.
Yeah.
It's inconvenient.
They don't want to hear it.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Unless guys check out from women and women are desperate, only then they will be forced when they are in a survival mode, when they are suffering and struggling. Maybe then they will realize that what they did before is not going to work and they have to change.
Statistically speaking, unlikely. Most humans, when encountered with evidence of their own failings, and what I mean by evidence of their own failings, literally the evidence is you failed and here's why and how, they will blame it on somebody else.
Well, they will keep blaming it on the man while men
Exactly.
will take the blame. But at some point, the government will run out of resources.
What do you think the church is doing?
Right.
Look, at some point, the bubble is going to burst, and then they will be facing the severe consequences. There will be no welfare programs. Social security will disappear. What will women do? Where will women go?
Well, where will women go? Here's the deal. And this is okay, if you want me to project forward in the future a little bit here for a second, it gets really dark really quick. Where will women go? Well, there is nowhere to go. If you're a 45-year-old cat mom, no guy on the, who's, with brightly colored hair, no guy in the world is going to want to touch you. And any guys out there who have the ability to take care of women are going to be inundated with women who aren't 45-year-old, cat moms with light blue hair. They're going to get young women who might actually be willing to behave, for lack of a better term. That word will get me in trouble. But they might be willing to behave, and they're young enough that they can pull that guy. They still have the fertility. They still have the looks. What these older women are going to do? Well, women really only know how to do one thing, and that's sell themselves.
So we'll see more naughty pics on social media. Free sex with old ladies.
Nobody will be buying.
Yeah, nobody will be buying. I think you'll see a lot more women out on the streets, and it will be pushed as this cultural pandemic, and we won't have the money to respond to it. When I said this is dark, guys, I'm talking about really dark.
You reap what you sow.
Well, I look at this in terms of debt. All these women are pulling forward all of these good times. They are literally racking up debt, but they're racking up debt on their bodies by, fucking every penis on offer. They're racking up debt in culture by attacking and destroying the men. They're racking up debt in relationships by, destroying their marriages and destroying their children. Destruction of children is always and ever debt liability against the future. Because the children are the ones who have to take over the economy and pay for your later years. Well, not only do we not have enough children, the ones we have are raised to be little criminals. We've talked about this before in prior streams. So little criminals do not build a functioning tax-paying society that can fund things like Social Security. Okay. I guess
I have no expectation to have any benefit of that, so I just say get rid of it anyway. So.
Well, it's interesting. The millennial generation is the first generation to respond to surveys in large part, even more than the Xers. We have no expectation of having Social Security. Millennials, like 70% of them think that they won't have it. Even the Xers, it's about 60%. It's 55, 60%, somewhere in there. Depends on which survey you look at, but no, there is the future is a very dark place, and that's even if we start turning it around and we start imposing consequences today. The future is a dark place because you've got, let's see, the millennial generation starts in 1981. Okay, well, that means there are women 43-year-old women out there, millennial women, who have literally no hope.
The problem is that women don't care about society and about the future.
Women?
They only care about themselves and now, at the present moment.
Women are decivilizer.
Yeah.
And it's not just women, it's also a generational thing too.
Yeah, it is. We've raised generations of weak men. And weak men cannot civilize. Civilization, the process of civilization is something that requires men of strong constitution. And I'm using the word constitution because I'm trying to get at more than just strong physicality. There's a strong mentality that's required, but there's also a strong morality that's required.
Yeah.
Because I'm not even going to get into the benefits of Christian morality versus others. In order to civilize the world, there must be a strong shared sense of morality about why it is necessary to do all of this hard labor. All action has, we talked about this recently.
Consequence.
All action has consequence, and morality is the framework that we use to decide if the consequence is worth if the benefit and the risk of the consequences are worth it. And that shared morality that allowed humanity to civilize the world is one of those frameworks that was used to decide why is it important to build roads. There is a morality to building a road network. There is a morality to building a sewer network and a freshwater network.
There is a morality
Planting
in building
trees, planting an orchard, not for your immediate generation, but for generations to come.
Yeah, aren't there some orchard trees that take like 30 years to start bearing fruit?
Yeah,
I can't remember which one. I want to say it was pears, but yeah, some of the 30 years. You will never see the benefit of your work. And it used to be men understood that and they were willing to do that. But why were they willing to do that? And that's really the question here. Why were men willing to civilize the world and go through the pain of civilizing the world? Well, it was not for their wives. It was for their children.
Yeah.
Now, in order to have children, what do we need?
Mhm. A woman,
No.
not even a wife.
Well, yes. I mean, in its most biological sense, yes, you
Yeah.
need a woman, not a wife. But throughout history, having a wife to rear children
Mhm.
while the man is out there working was a necessary component. It still is, except we've kind of replaced wife with state.
Mm.
Also replaced authority
With
state.
Husband with state.
Yes. So
So both of them are married to the state, not the other person.
the men less so. The women are far more married to the state, but the state intervention does have effects on both sides. It's, I mean, look at Nick over here. State intervention had an effect. He might not have agreed
Yeah.
with any of it, but it had an effect.
I hate them. I hate them to the day I die.
There's a lot of men who maybe they're not willing to say that publicly in front of a camera, but there's a lot of men who
I
agree
will.
with you.
They're evil. They're fucking evil.
So
Well, and by destroying your life and your authority, they also destroyed your kids' life, the future of
Yes,
your
they did.
children.
Yes. They are manifestly evil.
and well, and this is what we want to talk about, the morality of this kind of stuff. The morality is now Nick can't be involved in the rearing of his children, or is it a very at the state limited
Severely
boundaries?
limited.
Yeah, the state set boundaries.
Mhm.
The chances of one of his kids growing up to be a criminal has gone up like 100 times, which is insane.
Mhm.
Godsod is going to go down in history for pointing that out. It's actually well known in the psychological literature. But anyway, it's just this idea that we can do something without a morality framework. As I said, we talked about this last week. This idea that we can do something without a morality framework and there will be no consequences for it is egotism mixed with mental. What's the word I want for this? It's not just mental laziness. It's just low IQ thinking.
Well, it's that high time preference.
Yeah, it's short term thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a high time preference for what I can get right now. You will destroy your kids. Even if you raise your kids right, your kids will have to live in a future that was destroyed by other people's kids. Which, by the way, is exactly what's going on right now. And we are continuing to make it worse. So, the only way we can turn this around is, of course, to stop making these same choices, but we're not. And we can't, because in order to be able to go out and tame the world, Jordan Peterson talks about this quite a bit. It's this clean your room segment. In order to be able to go out and tame the world, I must first learn how to tame my own room. I cannot impose order on the world until I can impose order on myself. I cannot impose order on my family until I can impose order on myself. And there's no point in trying to impose order on the world if you can't impose order on the family. Well, what we've done is we've administratively said men cannot impose order on their own family, and yet we still expect them to impose order on the larger world.
Well, it's self-discipline.
No, this isn't about self-discipline.
Well, but listen, when men can't impose self-discipline on themselves and not chase, say, okay, I'm not chasing the tail of women.
No, that's not the important part of this particular argument. Yes, you need to be able to impose order on yourself. Most men will figure out how to do that in their lives at some point. Men's life, when that's what we say, men must become, women just are.
Mm-hmm.
The become part is men must learn how to impose order on themselves. Doesn't mean they always do. But if a man wants to become a man of value, he will. The state is what prevents us from progressing beyond that.
So you impose order on yourself, but you can't impose order on women.
I can't impose order on women or family,
Family, yeah.
or the state around me.
You can just, and state has no problem with you imposing order on yourself. In fact, this
They
is what
prefer it.
women expect. What women expect is just slaves, that you work man, you man up, you do what you need to do, take care of your family, provide, right? Financial protection, physical protection.
Sure.
They are fine with that. They are fine with men fulfilling their traditional masculine duties, but they don't hold women to the same standard. And I'm not talking about masculine duties. So women have to fulfill their feminine duties, but they
this is a discussion for a later day, but it's the concept of the noble savage and the fractalized man, the fractalized. I think it was John Locke who talked about atomism, and this idea that each individual in a society is a replaceable. They're an individual atom, and they can be replaced with an atom, atom, right?
Yeah, I got it.
And so, and they can be easily replaced by another atom in the system, and you know, like I think that was Locke. I could be wrong.
I can't recall.
Yeah, but it's the idea has been around for quite some number of centuries. This and it leads to this concept of the noble savage, basically, which it has been roundly disproven in both the
because
psychological and biological spheres.
There are fewer high value men
Always will
than
be.
women.
Always will. Women have intrinsic value. All women.
No, it was Rousseau. Are you talking about Rousseau?
I might be.
Oh.
My notes for that episode have been. Notes for our Monday episode, and I don't have them up right now. And this is research I've been doing for 2 months, so I don't remember. I don't have my sources up yet. But
women have intrinsic value. What's that value? Can you elaborate?
Eggs.
Well, yes, okay. So there are fewer eggs than sperm.
Always are.
And by that logic, then women. Okay, women are more prioritized than men.
Yeah.
According to that. Okay.
That's how the system got to where it is today. The system started. White Claws was talking about, is this the SPLC? No, it's not. It started much before then. It started by men who we call it simping today, but what it is men realized that women were the more valuable, and so they started building laws to protect women.
But men are more productive. Men are the ones who are paying taxes. Men are the ones who are maintaining the infrastructure.
Men are replaceable.
Okay. Find me a good replacement for. I don't want to throw you under the bus here, darling. But
I'm going to short circuit
you will be very, very difficult for me.
Okay. When the laws were made, that wasn't true. This is a long-term consequence of those laws. It was an unforeseen consequence that these laws would grow and particularly with case law be morphed into something else. And then 100 years later, do you finally start to see the consequences of these laws when men don't do those things anymore? Because, the average man works for 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That means that if you change a law tomorrow about how a man can behave, he's going to continue to do what he does for his livelihood for another 45 years after that. That's a long time. And this is why it's so important to have moral frameworks for your choices, because it is very likely that you will not live to see the full consequences of your choices. It's why it's important that we be able to impose consequences on our children and on our women, because you will not live to see the full effect of those by design. By natural order, your kids should outlive you. That's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah, it was considered a blessing in the ancient world for a grandparent to see his children's children.
yeah, it would be, given that they didn't live as long as we do now. Yeah. I actually got to meet my great-great-grandparents once, very, very young, but that would have never happened back probably even 400 years ago. So we must have moral, or at least heuristic, frameworks to be able to predict the consequences of our actions today, because they will ring out far beyond our own lives.
Yeah. And Darlene, I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on heuristics. The intelligent people are more likely to use the
Oh, that bothered you?
heuristics and generalizations.
It's I understand that it's counterintuitive. Okay.
Well, I just want to refer people to your live stream. Which live stream was it, so that they can watch it?
That was it's just called it's called the choice effect. On the thumbnail it just says choice. But the reason that I called it the choice effect is because every choice you make has an effect into the future, into the deep future, into the future beyond your own life. You might okay. People say, "Oh, well, but I choose to eat cashews instead of peanuts today." Okay, fine. Yes, that choice probably isn't going to have a huge impact going forward, unless you're allergic to peanuts and not cashews. Yeah. Okay, fine, whatever. But the general, we are not in that stream. We are not talking about the choice between cashews versus peanuts.
Yeah.
We are talking about these choices that lead to these consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And these consequences are inescapable. And you need a moral framework, a heuristic framework, to determine whether or not, and I think one of the mistakes that we make is we try to say, oh, well, but I can't determine exactly what the consequence will be. You're right, you can't.
But it's not merely the consequence, it's about the choice itself.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Not that you should ignore the consequence, but sometimes the choice itself, it's this one's right, this one's wrong, or and you do the best you have.
Ignorance is also choice. Ignoring something is also a choice that people make.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, people don't think about that, but when you choose to ignore something, and we talked about this, when you choose to ignore something, you are making a choice to accept whatever consequence is imposed on you.
Mm.
You can just sit there as like a bump on a log. You do nothing. That's a choice. It's a choice to live with the consequences. I love it, of course, when those people start complaining about the consequences of their non-choice. Well, that was your choice, buddy, was to take whatever consequence I chose to dish out.
Yeah.
It's usually not a good thing.
Yeah, it's
usually.
Oh, Tacticus is here.
He loves the graphic of Nick.
What graphic?
Oh, probably your avatar in the background there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've said most of what I need to say on the topic of consequences. There's, oh my goodness, we've been at this for almost 4 hours.
You could actually do a separate live stream, diving deeper if you want to, guys.
The concept of consequences goes on forever.
Yeah.
Because it is fundamental to human existence. It's fundamental to the natural world. In physics, one of the inviolate laws of physics is cause equals effect. Now, I am talking Newtonian physics. Don't at me, quantum bros. I will tear you to pieces on that. You're still wrong, but that is a conversation for a different day.
It would be interesting to talk quantum mechanics.
No, I don't want to
with
get into it with stupid people.
You don't want to debate that?
Now, what ends up happening is they read a summary of a scientific paper and say, this sounds really cool. And they don't understand what the paper's actually trying to say. Like a favorite one is they misunderstand
The vibrations.
Well, they misunderstand. So you'll see them say, "Oh, well, we're going to get into this later," but that you will see them say, "Well, I can do whatever I want," or no, I can change my reality.
My reality, yeah, change your reality.
No,
You're thinking.
It's a bad reading of what's called the observer effect. It's a gross misunderstanding of basically the idea is that that in order to determine something, you have to observe it, and the act of observation causes that quantum wave function to collapse into reality. Okay, look up something called the double slit experiment. The actual answer to why that experiment is because we have to shine light. And it's the light that allows you to be able to observe it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson does a great little bit on this about why. But it's you are not changing that reality. The light you are shining on it to observe it is what's causing reality to collapse into a. Yes, Tacticus. But it turns into this idea that because the observation solidifies a thing, they believe that they can change it by willing it to be something different. The amount of bad quantum mechanics out in the world right now, I don't want to have to deal with it, frankly, because
and we actually did an episode on my channel a long time ago with you, Plutarch, and there were other people.
Yes, we did.
You can check it. I think it's called quantum physics or quantum mechanics. We were debunking a lot of things there.
Yes, but don't at me, quantum bros. I will destroy you because I've actually read more than the abstract of these things. Here's what I'll say on this very quickly. To actually edit reality requires the energy of a black hole. And I don't mean a little one like Large Hadron Collider. I mean Sagittarius A star. And if you don't know what that is, go look it up because you don't know what you're talking about. And if you get anything wrong in your edit from history, from the beginning of the universe to the end of the universe, you know what you do? You destroy the entire universe. Yay, congrats. You're retarded. the energies that we're talking about to do this successfully and the knowledge required is God level knowledge.
Oh, interesting.
God can edit reality because he has perfect knowledge of past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
And you need knowledge of all three of those. It's part of the reason that a black hole is required is because black holes there's no time in them, so the time variable goes away, and you need access to that amount of energy to be able to edit. There's actually been theoretical work done. The math on this gets really weird, but you could literally, if you were actually able to edit reality, the most likely consequence would be that you edit reality out of existence. So, yeah, good on you, brother. Since you haven't done that yet, at a minimum, you would probably edit out our galaxy. There's some arguments about how far the damage would go, but at a minimum, you would probably edit out our galaxy. Anyway, that's just me being.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is, and I love it, and I'm a nerd, and I've been reading science papers like on this stuff since I was 10. So, that's why I say don't at me. Divine. Ooh, oh, no. No, Tacticus. Don't get me started on CRISPR. Don't get me started on that. Tacticus is just in here throwing little bombs trying to get us to go longer.
We'll have it
longer. You
on
can-
the Monday before Thanksgiving, though.
Yes,
Oh, the
Tacticus.
girls-
You're gonna enjoy the Monday. So November 25th on the Resurgence, we're going to be doing an episode on Flat Earth, which I'm fairly sure is just going to devolve into debunking all sorts of conspiracy theories. So we decided to have a little bit of fun before the holidays. So join us for that one if you guys want to see us just trashing idiots on the internet. That's always fun. But yeah, but particularly to the quantum bros, grow up. You cannot edit reality. You are not a god. And if you did, we would all cease to exist in an instant. Fortunately, it wouldn't be painful at all. There'd be no pain. It would just, one minute you exist, the next minute you don't, or the next picosecond, the next femtosecond you don't.
But they feel so powerful.
I'm sure they do.
They sit and vibrate here.
We'll tell that to the people starving and yeah. Why can't they just self-manifest some food, you know?
Exactly.
They-
Manifest some food.
They're
Get the
certainly
hell outta here with
motivated.
that shit.
Well, but there's an interesting observation on consequence there. And we did get into this in our episode on choice. Even if I can edit reality around me, that still has an effect. And that's just really what I was getting at when I said, the quantum mechanics bros will try and tell you that, you can change cause to come, to not have an effect. No. Even editing reality has an effect on reality. Duh, you edit it, you moron. The whole point of this was to have an effect. Effect coming before cause is a paradox, and we call it that for a reason. And there are some cool things you can do with higher dimensional mathematics that allow me to put, cause before, after effect. But they always end very badly and very, very energetically in the math. There's always some sort of hyper energetic reaction that, and one example of this is in time travel. It's called the grandfather paradox. The effect coming before cause is a grandfather paradox. One of the possible answers has been postulated by theoretical physicists is that you will not be allowed, that physics itself will intervene and prevent you from. The grandfather paradox is you go back in time and you kill your grandfather and then you were never born. So how can you go back in time, right? So if you can go back in time, then one of the answers is physics itself will intervene such that you can never kill your grandfather. Now,
Well, yeah, because this would contradict the reality of what happened, because otherwise you wouldn't exist.
right.
Oh.
So that's one possible answer. The answer that most physicists actually agree on is that if we go back in time, you would do it using an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and you could only go back in time as far as the bridge was opened.
Mm.
And even then, physics would prevent you from doing things like killing your grandfather. So it's a, and again, I'm not going to explain what an Einstein-Rosen bridge is, except to say wormhole, but not really. So, yeah, Tacticus, you're following along great, man. You're going to send me down a rabbit hole today.
I'm just like, okay.
Sequence physics denies future superposition. Kinda, yeah. That's. But the point really here is to say that every action you take, even editing reality, has an effect.
And what does this have to do with consequences imposed on a woman?
Not much. Not much to say except that there is no world where your choices don't have consequences. And
Okay.
for women, guess what? Your choices have consequences too. A lot of you are going to end up in a government provided
Wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
yeah. A lot of you are going to end up as
That's one way
wallpaper.
to put it.
And
Government
guys,
provided housing. You mean the government's actually going to spend money on them?
tent cities probably. But the wallpaper is a great sort of metaphor for where women are headed. And the thing is get on TikTok. The number of 40-year-old women complaining, they don't use the term wallpaper, but they describe everything that I'm talking about. Men don't listen, they don't look me up
Men
anymore.
don't care.
They don't talk to me. They just use me for sex. This is popular. They just use me for sex and move on. Why won't these men wife me up? Well, you're 40 years old.
What's your objective market value?
Yeah.
She lost it all. She wasted it all.
Your value to men is your youth and fertility, not your college degree. Sorry.
And if you're already a single mom too, that's another thing. It's like, well, why? That's another risk factor. So she probably, not all the time, but generally, yeah. She probably did something, betrayed the guy. What's to say she's not going to do that to you?
Tacticus is having fun today. His Teflon beauty. Yeah, there's no such thing as Teflon beauty. Now, there are some women out there, and I've talked about this. I think I've mentioned a couple names. There are some women out there who look great in their, even as they age. Kate Beckinsale comes up a lot in those kind of conversations. But even then, eventually they hit a point where they don't look that good anymore.
Yeah.
But guys, or ladies, you aren't Kate Beckinsale with a fleet of personal trainers and beauticians and personal assistants to make sure that your life goes perfectly such that you can take care of yourself like that. You aren't her. And even then, she does not look as good as she did when she was 30. I think she's 51 now.
Age comes to all of them. It doesn't even matter how well they look when they're young. They will still age.
Yeah. There is no for a select number of genetic freaks, they might make it to through their 40s looking
Good,
okay.
Yeah.
You are not the genetic freak, ladies. If you were, you would already be in Hollywood worth millions.
Exactly.
Because Hollywood wants the genetic freaks.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, the consequences they're coming for women, but they're not coming because a man is imposing the consequences on the women. They're coming because the men are checking out. They're ignoring. They're not dealing with. And I think that's probably the biggest consequence you can. I think probably the biggest consequence you can impose on somebody is. Oh, we were actually watching a TV show last night. There's a guy talking about a divorce. He said he was talking about his ex, and he said something to the effect of, the thing that hurt the most was the indifference. It's from a TV show we like. It's called A Person of Interest. If you guys have heard of that show.
Yeah, I liked it until they started throwing other crap in there.
Yeah. I'm a computer guy, so we like it, but I like it. And it's a rewatch for us, but the writing on that show was actually way more solid than a lot of other shows.
Yeah.
So, but there's just this scene where this guy's talking about he met his ex at a mutual friend's wedding, and she was just indifferent, cold to him. Well, you know what, ladies? Men might not be indifferent and cold to you when you're 20, 25, but they will be when you're 40, 45. You will turn into wallpaper. You are wallpaper now.
And they make it sound as if it matters, as if their voice matters out there. Like, I will cut out sex from men. Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, Whoopi. Nobody cares. Sorry, Whoopi. Nobody cares.
You're
So,
too old.
yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a whole lot of nobody cares in the future, and
Mhm.
that's going to suck for the women, and to a lesser extent for the guys. But there's some not good that comes of that. But for the guys, but for most guys, it's not that big a deal. We're just going to go out and continue doing what we do, and guys don't need much. Lawn chair, Xbox TV, couple forks, couple spoons, couple knives, maybe some paper plates.
Yep.
Yeah,
Women
women needs all of the stuff.
Yeah. But that goes back to the civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Men civilize the world for their women. If men don't get with women, they have no reason to civilize the world. Men can live in a pretty uncivilized world because we're stronger,
Yeah.
right? We can deal better with chaos than women can. Ask any psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Men do not need the level of civilization that women want. So women, you give up on men. When you give up on men, you're giving up on civilization. You're saying you don't want civilization. You don't want running water. You don't want running sewer. You don't want electricity. To the power linemen in our audience. Oh, that's a good comment.
Mm-hmm.
Apathy is a cruel mistress. Yes, it is. And that's the women, they were apathetic to men when they were young. And then the men will be apathetic to the women when the women are old, and the women will cry into their cameras. And the men,
I've had a lot of experience with that lately. Like I don't care. But I'm young even too. I'm somewhere young. You're supposed to do that. I'm like, I don't care.
And see, they expect
I
men.
don't care.
They expect
You're not
men to
good.
behave in a certain way.
well, because women have taken so much power from men, including the power to impose consequences, the men are like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't care.
What makes you worth it?
Men refuse the consequences that are coming with women, because if a man is related to a woman, then he feels responsible, and he is legally responsible for her, right? And then they just don't want it because the reward, it's not rewarding, it's devastating.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, we've been going live for a while now, guys.
Yeah, 3 hours on.
Hours. Wow.
Well, okay. The reason this one goes long is because
Mhm.
consequences, it's cause and effect. It's physics. You can go the physics route. You can go the quantum mechanics route. You can go the civilization route. You can go the female, the interpersonal intersexual dynamics route. You can go the divorce route. There's so many different ways that we can talk about consequence, that and they're all related to each other. So yes, this one was a long one.
Yeah, but it's a good one. I really enjoyed today's live stream, guys. Thank you, Plutarch, for showing up, and I wish Steve was here, but
Yeah, Steve, we miss you out there.
Yeah, we'll catch up with him next time. I'll see you guys on Monday, right, for your show. What are you talking on Monday again?
Oh, Monday. So
That's the big one.
Yeah, Monday's the big one. Monday, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to be talking about Nietzscheanism and the keys to the political kingdom.
Yay.
And I don't want to give too much away, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a long one. My notes for this have run on pages. So yeah. Monday, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to skewer some sacred cows of the modern era. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. But I want to warn you all you listeners out there. It's going to be a pretty philosophical episode. It's going to be dry. We're going to have conversations using logic about logic. We're going to have to do a lot of term definition because there's terms that no one's ever heard before. So bring your favorite beverage and bring a lot of it because we're going to be dry, and we're going to be dry for hours. People accuse us of being dry, so
I
we have to play
love
into
you
it.
guys. I love dry nerds who nobody are talking about, who make high quality content. Yeah, guys, please go subscribe to the Resurgence of Sanity. Join us on Monday at 5:45 p.m. Pacific for the show that Plutarch mentioned. And then what do you do on Wednesday?
Nick,
I'll
that's
do
you.
part 2 of leadership. I'll be doing what does the Bible say about leaders and leadership.
Perfect. Yeah. And then just to wrap it up here, join me from Monday through Friday for the workouts at 9:15 a.m. Pacific. And then I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion that we had with the Resurgence of Sanity, guys. Remember to please like, share, and subscribe. Tell us what you think about the topics. Leave a comment in the comment section after we are done here. We appreciate your feedback, and it also helps the algorithm, the YouTube. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Elena's Barre, the best place on the internet, the very best by far.